It's always fun when we can't hear you after like 15 minutes and it's been me monologuing the whole time to this silent speaking partner. So, hey, internet, Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. That makes you paid for. That makes you immortal now. He's not going to be long anyway. You found Stop the White Noise with Jonathan and Meridith. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Meridith.
And we got your questions, Bible answers, our nonsense here on Stop the White Noise for you this morning, brought to you by Mad Christianity. You can always find out more at madpxm.com. Get the best newsletter on the internet. Keep your mind tuned for discernment in these dark and weird ages. If you want to send a question to the show, you can send it to revfisk.com/contact, revfisk.com/contact. We try to get to all the questions in due time when you send them in your way. And if you like what we do here, you can support us. Patreon.com/RevFisk, RevFisk, or preferred subscribestar.com //
Start over again?
Subscribestar.com. I was doing really well there for a moment. I was like smooth. Subscribestar.com/RevFisk. Subscribestar, spelled just like it sounds with a .com, is .com right afterwards. And thank you, those of you. We've had a couple of pickups in the last week, which has been good in these challenging inflationary times. We're feeling the pinch here in Rockford. So thank you if you are able, and those who do support us. So we are brought to you not financially, but just spiritually by the Hebron Collegium. Hebron, you can read about that in the Bible. It's a pretty important place. Collegium, it's like college with an eum on the end, I-U-M. It is a Bible 1 year, gap year, Bible school for men. Mm-hmm. I was talking about it recently, and I thought there's an even better way to describe it in just a few words. It might have been in a dream last night. Man, did I have a lot of dreams last night. They were all over the place. Oh my goodness, I'm just remembering one right now. Like it's like and then there was that one. Oh, it was so much. And then I woke up and then okay, anyway. Let's get back to Hebron. The Hebron Collegium, so like and maybe it was someone maybe it was when I was talking to my mom and trying to explain like the goal here is the full man boot camp experience. Right. You know, you don't have a rite of passage exactly. You've been prevented from exploring and taking risks. School's been about color inside the lines, like a good boy. And if you've done anything, it's probably not mixed martial arts, Brazilian wrestling, choking each other, right? So to read the Bible 1 to 2 times in an entire year, to explore all manner of science, natural philosophy, history. What are you interested in knowing about the world you live in that they didn't tell you in whatever classes they made you sit through and say yes to during high school? So what is that? Plato. What is that? Is that? Oh, what was the other one I was just looking at yesterday? Because I was showing the library around. I'm like, oh yeah, and then it's this and that, but. One of the guys is reading Plato right now. What is that? House management. What is that? How do you
time management?
Time management. Oh goodness, is that a need? A need? But then also, the wood shop exploratory going to be something I really focus on more once we get the jiu-jitsu mats up, because now that space will be finished, then we can move on to the next space, which is closer to the house. And that. So yesterday we spent a bunch of time painting the walls so that we can now we could have put in the jiu-jitsu mats, but we have to get a hold of Mark and finish the floor that didn't get finished.
Yeah,
that's a little disappointing, but
little oversight.
Yes,
on the construction.
Some splotchy lack of. Anyhow. Hey, if you would like to know more about the Hebron Collegium, please reach out at HebronCollegium.com, or you can do it through RevFisk.com. We are wanting you, young men, coming out of high school next year, going off to college, not sure what you want to do, talk to your parents, take a year, don't go into debt, and figure out who you are, surrounded by other Christian brothers who also are reading the same Bible, the same amount, every day. 2 lectures a week from me in the evenings. Get to participate in the life of St. Paul Lutheran Church. Get to know the men's group there, which is fantastic, supportive group and whatnot. So, Hebron Collegium, check that out. And pray. If you don't have a son to send to it right now, pray that you that some do, because we need you to make this possible. So, yeah, and we're brought to you by that. All right. I think that's our advertisements for this morning. So I'm just going to throw it to you and ask, what do you think about this week, Meredith? I'll say this. It's been 10 days.
Yeah.
I actually missed this quite
wild.
a bit. It's like, wait, what happened? Where'd it go?
Yeah.
We went to San Diego. That was nice.
We did. We got to go to a part of the country that both of us were like, nope, never going to go there again.
Not in like a hatred, just not
just because with 5 children and the way that the world works on one income, it is, or one person winning the bread and however many facets that needs to be, you just have to delegate your money differently. And so vacation means something very different.
Yeah, 7 plane tickets isn't in the normal.
We were the other day talking about, okay, so if we were to do a vacation where we stay home, we might be able to rip out the carpet in our house and replace it with something.
For significantly less than a trip to San Diego would be.
Yeah. That's the way that we think. But we're like, no, we can't do the carpet because we actually have bathtubs that are breaking, like bona fide breaking.
Yeah, right. So that's what we actually got to do.
So, so it looks like, vacation for us is just, it's not travel. It's like.
Not normally, but we did. We were given the gift.
We were given a gift.
We took the gift. We seized the gift.
The day on the beach, which was incredible it's an incredible learning experience.
Especially for the kids who'd never been there, right? The kids who'd never experienced anything like that ever.
Yeah. The salt water was weird to them because Lake Michigan is just not salty.
And how often are we at the beach at Lake Michigan?
Right. Not often.
Not. So.
So yeah, they were kind of taken aback by the fact that they would drink the water and it wouldn't help.
No, it does not help. You don't drink that stuff.
So thirsty. And then one of them did mention looking out at the horizon and not being able to see anything was a little scary.
Yeah. Well, there's that place where the world stops and you just fall off. Right.
So that was interesting to experience through their eyes. And then being in that part of the country, because it's such a temperate climate, the homelessness is on a different level than what we experience here. Like, because of the cold nights that we have now, and then sometimes cold mornings, the homeless will just kind of disperse and go away. But there, it's like a constant. Nope, they actually set up camp alongside the road in tents.
There are places in colder climates where that happens. I've seen image. I mean, it's not like Seattle is quite Chicago, but I'm pretty sure Chicago has its own issues.
It reminds me of Grapes of Wrath, though.
Yeah, right.
I've
seen shots of off the Seattle freeways where it looks like South America hillsides built of cardboard. I mean, it's pretty for third worldy.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, hey, do you know about A Brief History of Power? You should check out that podcast if you don't know about that. I'm not going to put it on the screen right now, but hey, we live in a third world country. You didn't know that? Didn't know the U.S. was a banana republic? I'm sorry that you've been asleep. You should maybe watch less TV and just kind of poke your nose out a little bit more. But that's it. It's easy to forget that. It's easy to go back to the kind of trained nostalgia mindset of Americana. But no, we got not just a homeless problem. We got an economic collapse happening around us where people can't.
Yeah.
People can't. They can't make it. And we got a massive drug problem going on as well. This is where we're like worse than a third world country. Like all the people in Argentina, like all the 20-year-olds aren't on fentanyl. Like they're poor. They've got a communist government, or I'm thinking Venezuela there, but they've got a government that's corrupt and stealing and has been for years, and they got injustice and all that stuff. But they aren't like just trying to get high and out of their mind all the time. That's a U.S. problem. That's a soul deep U.S. problem.
Is it because we are somewhat like lower middle class as a
I
nation?
think it's from the previous wealth.
Okay.
So you have kids that grew up wealthy, unable, prevented from exploring, succeeding, challenging, growing, unable to find a way, told they are without a God, but are monkeys, told that they will find all of their joy and passion in a streaming service that blinks their eyes bleed at 2 a.m. in the morning. And with hopelessness falling out of their ears, they turn to, chocolate.
Mm-hmm. Is that what... Oh, okay.
Well,
I was
I'm
like,
just,
is that what fentanyl is?
No.
Is it sold as chocolate?
No, I'm just trying to be nice and point out that we all have our ways of trying to deal with the soul-sucking, purging, destructive, epistemological crisis that is American civilization. But raised without a God in the appearance of luxury that is in fact quite depressing. Is different than being raised in a survival scenario where your family's scraping to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of checkout. I'm not going to go back to the survival scenario. I'm just going to go get high. Right. And that is what a generation is doing. And fentanyl then comes along and is like, oh, you like getting high? Because to be fair to the world here, pot and fentanyl, not the same thing. Okay, like it's you check out with your pot. That okay, you have a drink every night because you're medicating. Okay, fentanyl, it's like it's not heroin, but it's like in
Really?
that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's gonna kill you.
And how do
It's gonna
people
kill you.
acquire this?
I don't know. I'm too old to have grown up in that world.
Okay,
So
'cause I thought it was like an antidepressant, so I was assuming it was a prescription drug that people were getting and then overdosing.
No, there are drugs like that, but I could be wrong. I mean, hey, comments, let us know. I don't think so. I don't think it's this is a illegal entry to the U.S. problem. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We need open borders. It's fair to people or something.
So yeah, we almost went to Mexico.
That was fun. Getting lost on the way back to the airport. They're like, why would you be near Mexico on the way to the San Diego airport? Well, let that be a riddle for you. Getting lost on the way back to the airport and seeing the border crossing.
Going into...
Checking the rear view mirror.
For border crossing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're like 100 feet away.
Like, welcome to Mexico. It's like
checking
right
the rear view mirror to note that there are no cars in the 3 lanes that I then cut across to catch the, is this made for us? U-turn moment. I'm not sure it was. I think I didn't hit a curb. I kind of had to go around a curb. Yeah. Probably for other but we managed to avoid crossing into Mexico without passports. Probably not an issue at that point as American citizens with driver's license and a rented vehicle, but would have been missing the airplane at that point.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
I don't know what they would have done.
That was I can feel the stress right now in my belly.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was rough.
It was funny. I think it was funny.
It was because it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Boop, boop. Discord said hello.
So there was also the, let's see. So we almost went to Mexico and there were a lot of homeless camps, which was extremely new to me.
Not everywhere, but in certain locations off the
Definitely
freeway.
on the freeway where you could see, it's like there's that frontage road between the freeway and the buildings.
California has a massive challenge with this, and
merchants.
San Francisco, from what I understand, is worse. LA is much worse.
Hear.
Yeah.
But experiencing it is different than hearing about it.
Yeah.
To some degree, what I hear about, thank you 2020, I don't believe.
Yeah, sure.
Anymore. I'm like, okay, moving on. Until you see it. Yeah, so then we also saw a worship service.
That was fun. Anyone who watches the YouTube channel regularly and listens to sermons knows about that one already.
Yeah,
so.
But they didn't get to see you.
Didn't see me. I did not participate in this worship service.
No, you demonstrated it.
Yeah, I did.
Walked off your little screen and demonstrated.
Got out. I preached out of the pulpit while doing yoga this week. Send that one to the International Center. Tell them what I'm doing in Rockford. He's doing yoga in the narthex, in the chancel.
Yeah.
In a chasuble.
Yeah. It was a moment to behold.
But everyone got it though. And it made it fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got to see that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so to the listener, if you don't know, we went to one of my favorite spots in San Diego. It's called Lost Street. It is in Pacific Beach. A nice little cliff overhang with a walk down to the waves, and you can take the boardwalk all the way to Mission Bay if you want to. And we were there just to say goodbye Saturday morning before we had to go catch that plane on the way to Mexico or something like that. And it was packed. It's Saturday morning, of course, it's going to be packed, but it was packed in a way I'd never seen before, which was 200, 250 is what I'm guessing.
A grassy knoll was like...
On the grassy overhang. That's right.
Mat to mat.
Mat to mat yoga participation. And as we come around the corner, they all got one leg in the air. They're all downward dog with the leg up.
Is it three-legged dog?
Is that what it is?
Three-legged dog, I think.
But all in unison, all at once, and it was kind of and toward the west, toward it's
to
like
a gong.
Yeah.
Gong.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Goes the leg.
Is that what they were doing?
The kids said there was.
Okay.
There was a gong.
I had to drop them off and then drive around, eat my burrito, and you guys got to see the shore one more time. But that was as much as it's ever looked obviously like worship to me. It was like, hey, look at these people. This is their religion. It's Saturday morning. It's the Sabbath. They're doing this thing.
Yep.
But
sunrise service.
Sunrise service. Yeah.
A little weird.
Yeah.
I mean,
hey, I'm all for stretching in the morning, and there's no reason not to stretch with friends. But if that were only what this was,
objectively, yeah. To objectively look at it, you're like, it's a little disconcerting.
Did they have a statue anywhere in front of them? That would be the thing.
No, because God, the deity. So the way that it works is that the more of the light that's inside of each of them congregates, the more powerful it is.
That doesn't stop them from worshiping statues.
Really?
The Hindus are all about their statues.
And is that where yoga is from? Is Hinduism?
It is Hinduism. Ultimately. I mean, it is the most Americanized, westernized sales pitch, rose glasses, soft pill Hinduism. It's not the let's fight the Muslims to the death Hinduism.
Okay.
Right. So, but it is a branch or a tendril of Hinduism. And you find the person who's doing all this stuff and what's going to be they're going to have a Krishna statue. They're going to have a Buddha statue. They're going to have some kind of statue in their home that is related to this religion. They're not going to, over time, the one who's really into it is going to do this. You can't avoid it. You can't avoid it.
I remember watching Wim Hof, the expert in breathing technique that then enables you to go into extreme cold scenarios and not let your body suffer from it.
You actually
you could say.
Strengthen and feel great pleasure from it.
Right.
Not this morning, let me tell you. I cheated on my shower this morning.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it was like 10 seconds. I was in and out. I wasn't going to let myself not do it, but I was going to continue your story.
So Jonathan does a cold shower every morning, as do I, but he does it like the Jonathan way, which is out of bed into cold shower, and I do it the Meridith way, which is take your shower and then turn it to cold and finish with...
I don't think that's any less
with cold water.
Shocking and painful. I've tried that. That doesn't save any love for me.
I just love it. I don't know.
I love it too afterwards. I the way I feel after I get out of a good cold shower, I mean, you feel buff and just strengthened. And one of the things from his book is like, you just look at your skin and the red goosebumps that just cover you are like life.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it hurts. It hurts every time.
I have gotten to a point where I crave it so much that when I'm in any type of suffering scenario, like having a cold, when I had COVID, I took cold showers and it made my symptoms go away for a minute.
Yeah.
It made me feel better.
Truth. Well, it does. And that's, so I crave it too. That's where I'm like, I don't want to do it this morning. I don't want to do it this morning. And I'm like, but I can't imagine going forward without that, that shock.
Yeah.
And so, which is adrenaline, right? Or at least it's some kind of like
Would
lift
that be a
in the system.
Dopamine
rush.
then?
Yeah. Right. And so it's like, okay, fine. Well then 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Get out and I'm breathing. And then I want to sit outside. I mean, it below 30 outside. So I want to sit outside again. That's which now that it's getting cold again, I like that. That part's my favorite part.
Okay.
I mean, just stepping outside in my skivvies into the absolutely freezing weather, and especially after the cold shower, it's like, it ain't that bad out here.
No.
I mean, it's not that bad. And you stand there and snow's falling. Not no snow today, but snow's falling, the wind's blowing. It's like, okay, I'm gonna start breathing.
Mm-hmm.
But I got 30 seconds of this. I'm not gonna run from that. And that doesn't have like the punch that the cold shower gives you. And so I really enjoy stepping outside. And I even walked around and watched the kids scrape the frost off the car. And
Nice.
Just like, this is not so bad. What's really crazy, you put clothes on, step outside, you're colder. It really is amazing. Anyway, you brought up Winhoff, who is a pagan, he's a pagan.
So I went to his website because from watching you do the breathing, I was a little confused. And so I wanted to go to the expert and just see, like, okay, is this Jonathan's interpretation or is this really what it's supposed to look like? And his video had, all sorts of statues. I was like, I didn't realize he was into this. I just thought he was a guy, like,
oh, he's
breathing.
all kinds of Gnostic inner light.
Yeah. I didn't watch the whole
even
thing.
to the level where like, you know, what he does is super powered, and it's like, maybe this is all nature, but maybe it's not.
Yeah, it made me a little uncomfortable, to be honest. Like, I was like, okay, I just wanted to see him breathe. Got it, noted, done.
Yeah.
And went away because I didn't want to be there too long.
Yeah.
And isn't that weird how, like, I was in my house that has had the Psalter prayed in, and you know, we sing hymns here, so the Holy Spirit and the Word are definitely active in this home.
There's the proximity of God actually here.
But then I go into my device and I look at another.
Sorry,
you
everybody.
Okay?
Sorry, yeah, I just choked on my own spit there.
It happens. It's a human thing. I go into my device and then suddenly I'm in somebody else's home.
Yeah.
And I'm not even physically there, but I can feel, like, I feel
their home is in your home.
Whatever is in their home.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I guess, speaking to how powerful the machinery that we make use of daily is.
Yeah. Powerful indeed.
And how virtual reality it is, even though we don't have the little goggles and the machine that says it's virtual reality. You are more
there than here.
Exactly.
In your spirit. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And in that way you're disembodied, which is.
Yes.
Weird.
Yeah.
The further you get from it, the more disconcerting it is to experience it again.
Mm-hmm. So buyer beware.
Yeah. With that, as I've been trying to target some jiu-jitsu learning via video, like things that I know I haven't quite captured that we're not going to work on in class anytime soon, but I want to like relearn it. So I'll go and I'll try to find a video and watch it, and I'll get, you know, a 5-minute or a 15-minute or a 30-minute video, and I'll try to take notes or whatever. That's been an interesting experiment though, because like I haven't watched anything for a year, 2 years almost, right? Video
like
gaming,
news clips and stuff.
Even there, I mean, yeah, you're right. Tucker Carlson, every so often someone posts a link, or the there's the website that does kind of updates on Intel with regard to but although that one's not really moving pictures, that's just like still shots and audio, so and like maps. And so this is the thing, it's like there's just such a difference between listening to something, watching a still shot while someone talks, and then even just watching us talk like this, and then, although this really is where it jumps though, is you have the moving talking picture. Like that's where everything kind of, because when I'm like listening to the Intel update and the map is there, like I don't stare at it the whole time. I'm really bored of looking at that. I'm gonna look over here now, right? But when I get my updates, so I do get an update from Frisbee every week on the questions for this show, and I don't really need, I love you, Frisbee, you're great. I don't really need to look at you all the time, but the video just pulls you back to it over and over again, right? And so, yeah, the power of it is really something. And then the question for me is, how, as a Christian, if you're going to make use of it, do you make use of it? Since if you don't know how powerful it is, you're not going to use it well. That's for sure.
Yeah.
If you think, oh, I'm impervious, or this is no big deal, okay, you're an idiot. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of someone specifically at a talk recently who actually I just like, okay. And his whole argument was, you make use of it like this.
I love
right?
it. I love that.
Okay, whatever. I've been doing that. I've been doing this for years. And the fact that I've been doing it for years should make you think that I know what I'm talking about when I tell you how manipulative it is. But okay, don't believe me. Just because I haven't turned it off yet. And I hope you all appreciate that, because we're glad that you listen and watch. Although I'd rather you listen than watch. All truth be told.
Yeah, then we could wear our pajamas.
Who says I'm not?
Right? I could wear my pajamas.
Yeah. The power of this stuff. And the way then the next step is the way that it moves from what you chose to look at to what you didn't choose to look at. Mm-hmm. Right? And the way that then hooks you into going further. And so you in your 40s, you're like, well, I mastered that. Okay, but your 3-year-old can't.
Yeah.
Your 8-year-old has no capacity. Your 16-year-old really doesn't have that self-control. Mm-hmm. And so what you're doing is you're giving a brainwashing device to a young child, and it's powered not by you, but by demons, honestly. And so when we got questions about the rise of confused sexuality, coming our way here.
Well, the interesting thing about going to a beach scenario is the amount of people watching that you can do.
Yeah.
And the diversity, because I don't believe that a lot of the people we saw on Friday, which was our beach day, were actual native San Diego people. I think some of them were, but just by listening, there were a lot of vacationers. There were a lot of vacationers.
European accents.
Yeah, there were a lot of Europeans, to be honest. And something I did notice, however, was a lot of people come to the beach. They set up their little camp, and if they're on their blanket, they're on their phone. And to me, so it's just a limitation.
I mean, it reminds me of, so we're sitting at this La Jolla posh breakfast cafe overlooking the cove and the seals.
So it was built in 1894.
Yeah. Eating our steak and eggs, and there's this couple next to us on a date, and they're not talking. They're just looking at their phones.
No, and like she had the full on like eyelashes and totally did herself up. Yeah. And in what time was it? It was like 7:30. I don't even know what time she got up to do that.
Yeah, it was like 8:30.
But like she had made herself look a certain way, and truly it wasn't, if they were on a date, it wasn't so that he could not enjoy how she looked. And he wasn't looking at her.
They had no capacity to maintain.
She wasn't looking at him.
They had no capacity to maintain a 1-to-1 conversation for more than 5-minute chunks without them checking out and then checking back in. Right? They're fragmented in soul. I
feel a little bit like the boisterous, raucous group whenever we go places, because we're talking and we're laughing, and other tables around us are quietly like looking at their phones and not talking and not interacting. But so it was an interesting experience to see the people who were looking up on the beach were the people who were actually worshiping the sun and doing yoga sessions. Otherwise, they were worshiping their phones or in the water getting buffeted around.
Yeah, which is worth it. Oh,
yeah.
That was great. Even to lose this, I lost sunglasses. Bye-bye sunglasses.
Lost sunglasses. Our daughter lost her chastity
that was
ring.
Not in the water, though. That was just left on she put it on her glasses, on her towel, and then forgot it was there. And when she picked them up, flung it probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. And then what else did the water eat? Oh, but we did learn, like, don't wear too small of a swimsuit. if you go into the water.
Who taught that? Oh, feedings.
I don't know why our son keeps packing too small of clothes. But second trip we've been on recently. And he just packs clothes that he doesn't
fit in.
Like he knows he doesn't fit in them. And he'll bring them anyway. Like,
the boy mind.
it is so different.
No, yeah, really. Like you can see there's two hemispheres and they don't communicate. Like I know this, but there's no emotional response whatsoever to it. I just know it. I'm going to keep going. And the thought that it means something, I'd have to have a different conversation about meaning to get there.
So we learned saltwater, sand, and too small of swim trunks
Doesn't
make
feel good.
a really uncomfortable scenario.
Yeah.
To where
It's okay. We can leave
well,
it
was
alone.
just funny because he was like, does anybody have scissors? He's in the shower.
He's trying to get out of his swimsuit.
I need to cut my trunks off. How'd you get them on?
Yeah, right. Poor kid.
But he had a good time.
Oh.
So
that was all me just asking you the last week, and that's why we had the show on Wednesday night, by the way, is so that we could have that trip happen. But then we came back here and
we left our puppy home.
Yep.
Which is raising a puppy is such a different experience. Like I have been studying human psychology and raising humans for a long time, and now I'm learning all about dogs, and not just any old dog, but like what we went and
the
chose,
dog of
like
dogs.
the most sensitive type of dog is the German Shepherd. And so like he got to stay home with some friends who love big dogs, and he loves them. So that was a good thing. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't as smooth as maybe you would expect.
He's still so puppy. He doesn't really do what you ask him to do.
Right.
Unless there's some very clear authority or reward connection point. So if I tell him to sit even without a treat, sometimes he'll sit, right? But you walk up and say sit, he's like, who are you?
Yeah.
I'm going to try to jump on you because I don't know who you are.
Well, and so the jumping up I'm learning it's a very welcoming dog behavior. Mm-hmm. Like that means I love you. Everything I have is yours. Mm-hmm. I've accepted you into my space if a dog jumps on you. They also, puppies and mama dogs, they will lick each other's mouths. Well, our mouths happen to be way up high. So they're trying to get up and lick our faces. So you can have them stop jumping by getting down to their level, but that means you're going to have dogs now in your face on the floor, you know. It doesn't take away that desire. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we came home to him, and it was one of those like, I'm going to kind of punish you for leaving me scenarios. So I went and got German Shepherds for Dummies at the library and have been learning all sorts of different things about German Shepherd psychology and what not to do, what to do, and like how I had applied some other dog training techniques to him, and that creates...
Because not all dogs are the same.
A bad scenario in a German Shepherd mind.
Right? Not all dogs are the same.
No,
which
they're not.
Is probably common knowledge that all dogs are the same. They're all dogs.
They're dogs. So why, you pick up a dog training book and you're going to train the dog to be this certain thing. Well, supposedly German Shepherds are extremely sensitive socially, and leaving them is really, really bad.
They're flock herd animals.
Yeah. And so they will get they'll get separation anxiety. And then you have to undo the separation anxiety.
I mean, he's had separation anxiety every time you've left the house for anything ever from a very early age. He just sits there and whines.
To try nervous. To downplay that, when you come home, you act very calm. And I don't do a very good job of this. I'm still learning to remember. Like when you come home from being away, you don't go, hi. It's like, it's supposed to be real calm. Like nothing happened. Big deal. I was gone.
Okay.
And maybe not even let the dog out right away. Get yourself settled.
Good to know. Tell the kids that.
And then let the dog out. Yeah. I've tried to, there's a lot happening in our community.
There sure is.
We had the most blessed supper last night.
That was great.
We painted over at the Hebron threshing floor, which is like the workout facility, woodworking room.
Mm-hmm.
And then instead of doing grilling out, which we normally do over at our place, we had just like potluck.
Crock-pot City.
Bring your crock pot full of food and we'll all just share potluck style supper. And we had to eat in shifts because our huge table that we have wasn't quite big enough. So we had the kiddos eat while the parents were finishing up, or the adults were finishing up the painting and cleaning and stuff. And then at one moment we had everybody gather into the great room and pray the table prayer with us. And it was beautiful.
Yeah.
All the voices, like, you don't get that feeling of how immaculate the group is when you're outside, because the sound is just kind of wafted.
What do you mean by immaculate?
Well, just like this, how full.
Okay, that's not immaculate.
Oh, okay. How intensely full the group is.
Right.
It just, there was so many people there, so many voices. And as I hear the different individuals' voices pop out, and I'll do this at church as well when we're singing hymns, thanking the Lord for that person and then the journey that they're going through, or the different things that they've experienced that I've been able to experience with them. It was a good moment. It was a great night.
Yeah. It turned out real well. And the floor still makes me frustrated. But like all the fear that I had leading into the event, because and the floor kind of was the fulfillment of that fear. It's like, I know something's going to go wrong. That was sort of like at the root of the fear.
Okay.
And then like the second I walk in the space, it's like something has not gone wrong. Something is wrong. It has not gone right.
Yeah.
But then it was really amazing to watch the group, a very diverse group, take on the project and then complete it, and how people came and went through that. So it was done by a host of people in, I want to say in corners, but that's not quite right. And all the way to the finishing touches, that were being put on at the end. And that was amazing. And to see it all done, I didn't think it'd get done in one shot like that. So
yeah, I was like, okay, this is great that we're starting, and now what are we going to have to finish throughout the week?
I thought we need a second Friday. We just have to take a second Friday event and do it. But now we can move on to other elements of it.
Yeah.
That was it's one of the neat things about Hebron as an idea, the Hebron Collegium. Are you tuning in just now? Have you never heard of the Hebron Collegium? HebronCollegium.com, a gap year Bible school for men here in Rockford. Is that it's not just about being a gap year Bible school for men. It is about building a intentional Lutheran community here in Rockford. And I was just thinking about this again last night too. We haven't said this on the show for quite a while, but are you frustrated living where you're living? Do you have the capacity to work wherever you want to work and live wherever you want to live? You should come visit us in Rockford. And I know it's Illinois. I get Illinois. I get it. And Rockford. Why are you moving to Rockford? Well, it's not Rockford. Actually, you're not really in Rockford. You're really in Winnebago County, which is a red county, a farming county. On the edge of the city of Rockford, or which Rockford is in the edge of Winnebago County. And the area where we are targeting for this community is a marvelously wooded lake community, not gated, but almost, just by virtue of the road system, where housing prices are kind of ridiculously good, even right now.
Yeah, we keep having more houses go on the market.
Well, that's just it.
The
market's going to shift the other way. The problem is all that they're raising all the interest rates, so getting good rates is hard. But you're still going to have the retirement of the boomers continue to drop these houses left and right. And so there's a lot of available space and decent pricing to be a community within walking distance of your LCMS church.
Yeah.
That faithfully does Word and Sacrament every week and loves its choir and has a men's group that meets with men who bring their sons and all this stuff. So, we've had a couple transplants this year. I haven't heard anyone else talking about even thinking about it, but those who've come, I mean, golly, they're glad they came.
Well, we have one who we're meeting with in November, who has...
We're talking about Hebron specifically now, right?
Oh, no, the community, just the community.
Who's that?
Expanding. Well, she is...
Oh, right. I kind of think of her as here already, even though, because she lives somewhere else and then just drives here, you know?
Yeah.
So you're right, though. She would be an actual transplant then at that point. So, yeah, right.
Yeah, so
if you don't like where you are and you don't have a church where you are, I mean, that's really very, very key. Do consider us. You do have to make your own way. We don't have capacity to provide for you. That's not what we're saying. But if you want to come be part of a community that is in existence and growing, we actually got one.
That was what happened yesterday. I think that was what was beautiful about yesterday, was that in the morning we met over at a home of a family that's moving into the neighborhood from out of state to join this St. Paul community, Hebron community. There were kids, there were adults, all ages, helping to rip out carpet so that they could have new flooring put in before their stuff arrives today and then gets unloaded and so forth. So we did that, and then there was some more tragic emergency in the community that we gathered around and prayed with and held and hugged and loved on this couple, and then went to work together and have the painting and the potluck. It was just village life at its fullest.
It really
yesterday,
was.
I guess.
That's right. It definitely was village life. That is exactly what it was.
So, and then there were various celebrations in different homes in the evening after we dispersed.
Yeah.
So Mama and Papa Fisk had to go to bed because we were exhausted, but then there were other after parties going on. So that was good.
Another tissue.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was amazing. So, hey, we'd love to have you be part of it if you are interested in being part of a intentional Lutheran community, because that's what this is. So, yeah. What else this week? I mean, that's all yesterday.
I know.
Right? I feel like there was more earlier in the week.
Yeah, for me, it was more trying to figure out how to work through the psychology of my puppy. Yeah. Our puppy. And then also learning for us as Americans, I think that we think vacation is such a good, healthy thing, but being able to objectively look at vacationing and the toll that it does take on your body, like flying alone. And we all kind of talk about it as like, ooh, flying, I don't love it. Or it really impacts me, or we just kind of talk about it with a cavalier way, the way we do stress, without really considering, no, see, this is real. The fact that my body went so high so fast and then came back down, it will impact me.
Right.
And that's not just talking about your ears.
No.
Needing to pop.
I think we can make the same argument for cars, honestly. That
you
have more stress from your car than you realize. And you can be like, that doesn't bother me. Fine. You're lying to yourself. It actually does impact you. It changes you. And all I'm saying is, I'm not saying don't ever drive. I'm saying, like, you can handle it better if you know what it's doing, right? Like, if you know what it's doing to you, you can fight back.
Well, allowing yourself a little bit more recover time. And, there's the joke, I need a vacation from my vacation. And it's weird to me. It's like, really? Like, why? I understand that we want to experience the exotic moment. But why do we do that to ourselves?
Because we want to experience the exotic moment. That's exactly it. It is. It's like a sugar rush.
So then perhaps it's not really like it's a vacation in that you're vacating.
Yeah.
But it's not this whole, like, suddenly I have no responsibility. I have...
No, vacation is like when the elite British noble, like, leaves the city for the country for 3 months. That's
Right.
I'm vacating, right? That's the idea. And we're all trying to be elite nobles in a week and a half or a weekend.
Yeah.
Squeeze it all in so we can be productive at the same time.
So those who live in Illinois during the summer and then go down to Florida for the winter, like that's
a
more
vacation.
vacation.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, the week trip, like, no, you're actually just going on a journey. You're taking an adventure.
It's a quest.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so when you come back, you will be tired and you'll have learned and seen a lot of different good things, some scary, some bad. But then recognizing the recovery time.
Yeah.
So that was something that I was
Journey
seeing.
is a good word for it. It is a journey. Mm-hmm. And it was a good journey.
It was a fabulous journey.
It was a terrible vacation and a great journey. Right? Like, a vacation would be slow. But amazing journey. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let the reader understand.
Yeah.
Please.
So it was wonderful. But the week was... because there was... different things that happened that were like, oh, the kids come back and they have a cold or they have meat stuck in their tooth. And so you have to go to the dentist and get it taken out. There was a lot of that type of like, oh, I wasn't planning on this.
Yeah.
Type of stuff for me this week.
Yeah. Cool. So I have the Hebron Collegium still on the screen this whole time. Yeah.
That's okay.
That's okay. That's
the
right.
the podcasters don't care. Yeah, I mean, is there more that you want to
I don't know.
talk
I'm trying
about?
to think about what I can even share.
Is that it?
There was a lot of jiu-jitsu for me this week. I went to 3 classes instead of 2. And so as I think back, that was a major part. But the reason I went on Wednesday, which I don't normally do, was because I had read all day. Mm-hmm. And
there was something that happened that, just learning more about the plans for the weekend, you were kind of like, I need to go.
Yeah. I don't know if I follow, but.
Well, our plans for what was happening this weekend really solidified on Tuesday evening.
Okay.
And so then Wednesday, you were a little, not in turmoil over it, but just not really at peace with how stressful the weekend was going to be. And so...
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Sure.
And then going back home to, home, quote unquote, San Diego...
That
you had a lot to process.
Yeah. And then so the
that
first couple of
time.
days, that really did. And that's something that was, I guess I should have expected it, but I didn't.
I didn't expect it because we only and very specifically went to positive places from your youth, not even childhood. It was more just like your high school. And so, we talked about, well, should we go to see your high school? Should we go see your home congregation? Should we go to your old stomping ground,
right.
like your homes? And we opted not to this time.
Right.
Because of the way that being in the positive environment impacted you and was more heavy.
It was already very heavy. Yeah.
Than you had expected.
Yeah. Well, and what it was, it was grief of not being able to live there.
Interesting.
It was home. Mm-hmm. I have not felt at home in 15 years plus since I left.
Okay. So 21.
21. Well, no, we went back for ordination. Been a pastor 16 years. So we were there when I was ordained.
Oh, for a weekend.
Right. And so I was just using that as my number.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
But I have not felt that way. And the feeling was, this is my home. Mm-hmm. And Kuntz talks about this in Brief History of Power, podcast you should listen to. And not every week or anything, but being tied to land emotionally is good, and that's one of the things that's really wrong with American society is that we expect you not to be, and we just kind of jump around and you're just completely mobile without any kind of connection. And the idea behind moving to Rockford isn't that you would move away. The idea is that for generations we would have people who come up who are tied to this land, not economically, but spiritually, tied to an altar, tied to a community that believes certain things. But that's then what I experienced going back was like that land, that space is in my blood in a way that Rockford is not after 4.5 years here. I don't, it's beautiful actually here. It's beautiful, but I don't love it the way I love that cliff line. And yeah, it's a beach. Okay. So like, what do you come on. Right. But no, it's more than just that it's a beach for me. It's not I need a beach. It's that beach. Mm-hmm. I go up to San Luis Obispo and I would not have that feeling that I had there. There's something just tremendously centering about it. And so then it was like, and I don't get to stay. Yeah. And then that's where the pain came from.
Right.
That this is just a dream right now.
Yeah, I think that's something that if we had gone to Yosemite or the Sierra Nevada mountains, I would have done that to you. Ooh. Yeah.
You have a deep love for the space. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then going to the extra classes was just sort of getting back into, well, see, I do feel at home on a mat. There is something about the mat that really gives me I feel like I am me. Mm-hmm. And all the more as I continue to fail miserably at being as good as I'd like to be at it, mm-hmm. There's just something about it that lets me release.
Well, think about like when you would go to the beach, you would go and surf. Mm-hmm. And so
pretend
you're
to
going to
surf.
have...
I was never any good.
Well, you tried.
Yeah, I tried.
But it was more just like nobody was expecting you to succeed.
Yeah.
Like on the basketball court where there was pressure.
Expectations were a lot higher, yeah.
And there was a coach and there were teammates who would, say things afterward one way or another. And so you say that you feel at home on the mat. Well, nobody's really pressuring you.
I don't know. There's some pressure.
Oh, okay.
But you're right. It's a different kind of pressure. I mean, definitely when I have someone in a triangle who's better than I am and the coach is yelling at me, finish it, do this, do that. There's a great deal of pressure. But you're right. It's not like there's no social emotional pressure there. Like they're not going to like me more or less.
Right. And you've already decided you're going to be a forever white belt. So it's like there's no
I'm not now.
There's
now I
no
know
pressure.
I'm not going to be. I mean, barring an injury that keeps me from getting it, my hope is to at least get to blue. I'd love to go to purple. I'd love to go to black, but it's too big a deal. I was at a conversation last night with Mom, and she brought up someone else having a black belt, and anytime you talk about jiu-jitsu to anyone, they're like, "Oh, I have a black belt in Taekwondo," and it's like, "Oh, you do you? That's great." It's just not the same. Mm-hmm. It's just not the same. The time and the effort that it takes is not the same. And so to say I want a black belt in jiu-jitsu is sort of like you can't. Humans don't have the capacity to think that far ahead, mm-hmm. realistically, and so you really have to aim a little lower. But
because in jiu-jitsu, it takes how long typically to get your black belt?
If you got a black belt in 12 to 15 years, you went fast.
Okay.
Fast. So your blue belt is like a 2-year minimum, maybe 3 to 5. And that's your second belt. You're white until then. And there's blue, purple, brown, black.
And in the other martial arts, the belt?
You're getting a belt after 6 months, 4 months, somewhere in there. And you can get a black belt in 2 to 3 years in a lot of them. Mm-hmm. So, which is great. You've mastered whatever they have to teach you. Fine. Good for you. It's just not the same. Mm-hmm. Like, come get on a jiu-jitsu mat and you'll find out how little any of that will do you any good in a fight that goes to the ground. And how hard grappling is compared to memorizing dance steps that look like fighting. I mean, karate's cool. Don't get me wrong. It's super cool. But it's dancing. It's dance fighting. I don't know if you remember that reference, but it is sort of a dance. And it can function against someone who's never been taught anything. Yeah, sure. But against a grappler, it's just not the same thing. So what I love about it, though, is just that. So you're thrown into the deep end of the pool. And it's just, well, I'm going to drown again this week. But I'm going to be like treading water while I drown. And there's going to be a lot of just release, a lot of discomfort that you can't not feel, but you're allowed to feel it. And it's good. It's just cold shower-esque at that regard, too. So you get off and you're just like, I just went through a toughening process.
Yeah.
So that was an extra dose of that this week was really good. Really, really good.
I guess I'm wondering if maybe the feeling of at home on the mat, the feeling at home on the beach, like if it has a similar, or if there's something connecting them, if there's something about your physical body and your mental body, or your mental state that makes you feel at home. So if you could replicate that somewhere else, you'd feel at home there as well.
Possibly.
And it's like so it's a PR thing, a personal record. Whereas on the basketball court, because you didn't want to go back to your high school to see it. And that's what your high school was basketball for you. I guess you did do water polo, too. But
not really. I did volleyball. So I also started reading Nassim Taleb, Skin in the Game this week, which the guys at Hebron are going to read as well. Having finished Fooled by Randomness this week as well. So so much good stuff in those books. But one of the things right out of the gate in Skin in the Game is that separating you from the product of the work you do will cause you over time to despise the work you do. And it is sort of de facto information work separates you from what you do.
Okay.
Even reading. And I think reading is a million times better than trying to deal with like spreadsheets and code, but the disembodying experience of information work doesn't let you work with your body. And everyone's like, I don't want to work with my body. Well, okay. Of course you don't. It's been cursed with thorns and thistles. But there's a kind of pleasure, a kind of satisfaction, a kind of, again, home that you only feel when you've worked with your body. And so surfing, getting in the way. You can't not use your body when you're boogie boarding or weight. Your body's very involved. And then, on the mat, like your body's very involved and your mind is forced to go into your body. I got to think about, where's my left hand? So coach will come over and you're rolling and he's like, what are you doing with your left hand? And your left hand's like hanging out in the air. You can't see. It's like it's hanging in the air. You're like, nothing. Yes, do something with it, because you need to use all four limbs at all times, right? And so so then you have to like put your brain into your hand, right, while you are still controlling the rest, and so it's a very enlivening, full body experience, soul body experience. I don't mean salvific soul. I just mean the human spirit, the life that we have, and. So that's probably where it is. And so if I really, 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 really loved wood carving, that would probably give me a similar kind of feel.
Yeah, probably. I mean, something about the high school or you've said it, the basketball, playing basketball caused you to go into that, almost flashback state.
I haven't thought about that enough.
What is it about it? Is it team sport?
No, that wasn't the issue. It's performance.
Thing?
It's a performance self-judgment that I don't have with the other stuff. And so like an expectation that I'm not living up to something that I've been told I should live up to. And why? I mean, my parents didn't really care about basketball. I mean, they supported that I played it. They didn't care. It's not their thing. They don't watch basketball ever. So so it wasn't from them, but somehow for me, it was like self-justification. It was where am I going to find my self-worth, which probably did have to do with, how do I fit in the social hierarchy at high school?
Mm-hmm.
The only way that I fit was sports. Everywhere else I was an outcast. And so then the pressure to do well at it,
Mm-hmm.
combined and reinforced with moments of significant failure. So I remember pretty vividly the start of senior year.
Mm-hmm.
I came in ready to play. I'd spent all summer working on my shot. I was honed. And during warm-ups for a scrimmage, a pre-season scrimmage, but our team was going to play against someone else. In warm-ups, I was stroking it. I mean, I couldn't miss. I'm just shooting 3 after 3 after 3. And the guy who's our star player, who'd been on varsity since he was a freshman, who was going to go D1, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I'm going to look for you tonight. So he did, and it was brick, 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 brick. And he didn't pass me the ball the rest of the season.
Oh, no.
Senior year, right? So reinforcing, right? Then every miss after that all season, right? Reinforcing. And yeah, so I don't know. And then that tied into social hierarchy and how popular you were off the court, right? And all that stuff. All the reasons why high school just absolutely sucks, and everyone knows it who's come through it.
Yeah, I remember.
And that wasn't at the beach. That wasn't at the beach. You're right. That wasn't there.
It seems like you could be yourself at the beach. You were a longboarder, and you were a surfer, and you don't talk about it in a way that's like, yeah, that's who I was. Because I'm sure there were other guys who were on the surfing team.
Well, there definitely
school,
were. Yeah. La Jolla High School did have a surfing team.
Yeah.
That's true.
And so you weren't them, and so you couldn't assume like, no, I'm not part of that.
No.
But it was something that you did, and it was a place that you found rest.
I don't know if I've told you this. So the thing about surfing, because I really never got good at it, I did not buy the board I should have bought for the type of waves San Diego has. So that's the long story short.
Was your board too long, or was it too short?
It was too short. But it was beautiful, beautiful board. Beautiful board. Anyway, but what I loved to do was, you'd get your board out of the truck, you go down the sand, you get in the water, and you start walking. You get over the breakers, you start paddling, you get over the big breakers. It takes a while. Sometimes you get pushed back because you're not that good. But you get out there past the breakers, and you sit up on the board and dangle your feet. So if there were great white sharks, you'd look like their favorite meal. But there are no great white sharks in San Diego, so you're cool. But from under, that's why you get bit as a surfer, is you look like a sea lion with your legs hanging there. But you sit there with your legs hanging, and it's about 6:30 or 7:30 in the evening, and the sun's right on that level, and I don't even need to catch a wave. I can just sit there and up and down with the pre-breaker waves on that board, and I could sit there for an hour and just let it be. I'll try to catch one. I didn't get it. Come back out, sit there. They're so serene.
Yeah.
Just so serene. So that's probably my favorite memory of all of San Diego. Longboarding on the boardwalk. That really, and being able to do that again, I felt great. I did it 3 times, but down and back.
I know.
Golly.
How far did you go?
My calf was so sore the next day.
I bet. One leg.
Yeah,
one
we went
calf.
all the way down to Mission Beach, which there's a big like roller coaster there and a bunch of stuff down. So actually, I went past that with Chloe. But to that and back with the kids.
That's cool. Yeah. So the kids all brought their skateboards, and then you rented one. And then one of the girls got a little bike. Did she go down with you?
She biked with me, and Fides were skating, and she just stayed right behind us the whole way. And
nice.
Yeah, it was something. That was something. All those rental houses that are just, multi-million-dollar apartments that no one lives in anymore.
And you talk about needing to have your hands in the soil, or needing to have a space. And I looked at all the people on the road and in these tiny apartments, big apartment buildings with little rooms that were their own, and thought about you just don't have your own space there. There is no owned space.
No. No, but that's where you walk to the beach.
Own space.
If you're that close, you walk to the water, and then you get that out of it. But yeah, so much of the city is 45 minutes, an hour away from that.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's where we live on the. I didn't go to La Jolla High School. I went to Grossmont. It's a long way from the water. And yeah, so.
Yeah, and there was over there. They have carpool lanes, which I just took for granted. Growing up in California, I knew about carpool lanes.
I forgot about them.
But the kids didn't know. They were like, "What is this lane with a diamond? What does this mean?" And so we, having packed up our car with people, got to use the carpool lane. But as we're driving past, car after car, it's just single person, and all these apartments and just single people.
Yeah.
Single people.
Cages. Cages.
It's a different type of society.
Yeah. I mean, but it still felt like home. That's the crazy part about it.
It's beautiful.
Couple thoughts from the comments. Nithrius says someone trained in judo would probably be able to hold their ground with a grappler. The Brazilian jiu-jitsu is like half judo. Right, so it's judo jiu-jitsu. It's merged together by the Brazilians, who most of them were German Brazilians. Go figure. The German immigration in the 1800s came to the United States and to Brazil, and so that German engineering got a hold of the Japanese wrestling of two different kinds, merged them, and became a powerhouse. The Gracies, and Jacob says, I started 7 rules every Christian should break yesterday on Audible. I think I may have found a new favorite book. Cool, Jacob. Glad that you found Broken. Make sure you do check out Echo and Without Flesh as well. They are all written for you and that. So.
I was just talking to a grandma about her granddaughter, and she has a neighbor friend who is Mormon. So there are like 2 families in the neighborhood. Each have 7 kids, 5 kids, large families. And one of the best friend of this granddaughter is a Mormon. And so this granddaughter's parents don't bring her to church, but the grandma does sometimes. And they were talking about like the difference between Mormonism and Lutheranism. And I've been thinking about how it's not about what the Mormons believe, but more like, what do we believe? Like focusing on teaching and reinforcing more like, this is what we believe to our children, rather than trying to show them what other people believe and why it's wrong.
Right. There's an endless amount of world religion out there, and to teach everybody everything about everything else is to not know what you know.
So my question is, so the conversation with the grandmother and the granddaughter got into catechism and confirmation, and how, what is the process of confirmation, and why do we wait so long, and is it necessary to wait, and blah, blah, blah. But the grandmother pointed out, you say the Lord's Prayer every night, but you don't say the Apostles' Creed, and you don't know what the 10 Commandments are. And so that's something that you would study to get ready for confirmation. And I thought, in that scenario, would Echo be a good resource for the granddaughter?
Oh, maybe. I mean, if she reads.
Or would it be something that you would have to, it sounded like this granddaughter was a pretty intelligent child.
So she's Mormon raised, but not Mormon trained?
Has a neighbor who's Mormon.
Oh.
Lutheran. Okay. Baptized Lutheran, but her parents don't go to church.
Right.
Because when the shutdowns of 2020 happened, they just stopped.
Got it. Okay.
And now grandma has started just in the last maybe year. Yeah. Half year, taking the kids, she has a sister, taking the kids to church. Right. Every so often, but not regularly. Only, when they're like, Grandma, take us to church. Right. and they're curious and have faith.
Yeah, I mean, my if they're old enough to read, Echo, and they read. I mean, they have to read.
Yeah.
Right, to get into anything out of Echo.
Well, like they're reading Narnia, they're reading all sorts of classical fantasy type things.
Yeah, Echo's written probably for a 16-year-old to be able to pick it up. So how do you even judge reading levels today?
Yeah, I don't know.
Echo is written for a modestly intelligent, just an educated high schooler should be able to handle it. But that's if they love reading. If they don't love reading, they're going to not be able to handle it because
I just felt like it was to introduce somebody who doesn't know about the catechism, really.
Right.
Like it's
sure.
They've never been sat down and been like,
yeah.
This is the catechism. We're going to recite this every day. They're curious, like, why do we have the Apostles' Creed? Nobody's taught them.
Right.
So would Echo be a good resource for that?
Yes.
And I kind of think it is.
It's probably a better resource for the grandma to read and then talk about. Right.
Okay.
So if you're going to talk about these individual commandments or the creed with your daughter, child, grandchild, Echo is a resource for you to pull on. Or to sit down and read a chapter together. It's definitely written that you could read it out loud. I can't help but write for hearing.
The voice of the author.
Yeah,
is really good.
I don't want to say it that way, but it was written intentionally to be heard. Because that's just how I write everything I write. And so to sit down and read a chapter out loud. But I mean, my thought and this is such a lame thing, but it really is true. Like any kid who is exposed to America in general, who is not being trained to discipline their mind at all, the absolute best resource for them is the Kingstone Comic Book Bible.
Okay.
And depending on this kid, I'd say start with the New Testament. Right. So you got a boy who doesn't know anything. I'd say start with the second volume in the Old Testament. Start with Solomon. Blow his mind. He'd be like, this is crazy. Who wrote this story? This is the craziest thing I ever saw.
It sounds like the Bible story, like the biblical narrative, is not something that she's unfamiliar with. It's more just the Lutheran concepts that haven't been exposed.
How is she familiar with the Bible if she doesn't go to church?
It's been a part of bedtime stories since she was little.
Okay. I don't know. If you have questions about the creed and your neighbor's a Mormon, knowing your New Testament just because you've read it.
Yeah.
And you just see Jesus saying this stuff over and over again.
That's true.
And the Mormon's like, Jesus isn't God. You can be like, what are you talking about? Jesus isn't God, you weirdo. Like it's just, as opposed to, well, the catechism says that Jesus is God. So therefore, and it quotes this verse. So just the exposure to the events of Jesus' life on a repeated basis. I mean, just read the New Testament, sure. But for the kid who isn't quite ready to sit down and read Matthew, then Mark, then Luke, then John in a row. Yeah. The Kingstone Comic Book Bible it's really well done.
Okay.
I've been again reading it, the Old Testament, after I read the morning Hebron readings, just to kind of get it a second time and reinforce. And man, it's so cool. Yeah. Why do we love images so much? It's made that question come up for me a bunch, but they stick with us. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and Echo definitely has the pictures to explain and all this.
So maybe saying, like you said, spend 6 months a year just let the child just explore this. And then the next,
or do it together.
Christmas or baptism day or whatever celebration.
Do them with each other. But
Echo would then be a good time.
I have become convinced that the Bible is more powerful than anything else we publish, including Luther's Small Catechism, which is a great resource, but it's not the Bible. And the fact that we don't, I mean, in theory, they're all taught the Bible in Sunday school, but they're not. Mm-hmm. And so we don't teach them the Bible till they're 12 or 14. And then they show up and we teach them the catechism instead. I mean, and we wonder why they're just checked out.
Yeah.
You know,
Because if you're not building on the foundation of Scripture.
right.
And so what you're saying is, if she has no idea what the Apostles' Creed says,
Right.
then Pontius Pilate, like, why am I talking about?
Who is he?
Why
Right.
am I talking about this
Right.
Pontius Pilate? Plain. Like, what is this?
Plane. Oh,
Like
he's piloting the plane.
Pilate. Yeah. Like, why am I? You know.
I was just going to say about Sunday school. And someone listening is going to be like, well, we teach Bible stories in Sunday school. And I'm like, okay. Teaching Bible stories is not teaching Bible reading.
Mm-hmm.
Teaching Bible stories is not teaching the Bible. Cherry picking a story and talking about the story is not the same as reading the Bible in big chunks out loud. And the only way that's going to happen ultimately is in the home. It's not going to happen on Sunday. You can open the Bible with 5-year-olds and read a chapter. They're going to be distracted. They're not going to be paying attention. You're going to feel like they didn't learn it. You can ignore all that and do it every week anyway. That will bear fruit. Mm-hmm. But most people don't do that. They try to instead find ways to manage the classroom. Usually that turns into crafts and treats of some kind. And just like that, you're kind of summarizing a story about Jesus in your own words, which often will be heterodox. Sorry, Sunday school teachers. It just will be heterodox. You'll cherry coat it in some way. And you certainly won't make sure to pick up all of the scary, hard, bad parts. Mm-hmm. You'll skip that part. And you'll say something that you know. And if you're a Lutheran, you've been trained to then make it all about the gospel. So it's going to be just only forgiveness of sins and Jesus loves you. Which, again, is not what the Bible says over and over again. These are true, but they're not like, if you read the Bible, you're not just going to get nothing but, and Jesus died for you. Like it's there. It's important. It's the good news. But what's the setup for the good news? Why do you need good news? Right? I mean, that the rest of it's pretty imperative. So, like, literally imperative.
I've been amazed recently just through our study of Proverbs, and then the way that you have opened Scripture to our congregation by studying different books of the Bible and deep diving into New Testament books recently. I've been amazed by how the typical, I'm assuming I got like a typical Lutheran upbringing, which for me started in 6th grade, where it's like forgive and forget, do unto others as you want done unto them, and best construction.
A lot of best construction.
So those are like this is, if you have all those, you are a Lutheran. You are a Christian.
Yeah.
And I'm learning through Scripture that there's so much freedom in speaking the truth.
Yeah.
Like, not just going along.
Right.
And then the concept that also was reinforced as I grew up in my family in the church and then in our Lutheran school system in the university level was like, if someone takes your cloak, give them your tunic as well. You know, so just let everybody trot upon you and smile while they do it.
Right.
And now, with what we experienced from our government and from our employers, that did not do us well, because we had no way of standing up against the bullies of our world,
Right.
and the evil of this age, and saying, this isn't right, and I'm not going to stand for it.
Right.
And so now we have, through the way you've exposed me and our congregation to Scripture, I feel much more empowered to be like, take they our clothing, our home, our wife, our children, you know, though all these be gone, I will stand upon the Lord, the word of the Lord, and he will not desert me. But go ahead, you were going to
Well, you made me think of Isaiah. So I spent a lot of this week reading a commentary introduction and up to through the first chapter of Isaiah, since following Set Apart at St. Paul, which will be starting All Saints Day, effectively. We're going to do 12 weeks in Isaiah, chapters 1 through 12. And so trying to get a head start on that so I'm not behind that first week and really imbibe Isaiah deeply, which it's good for me because I have no mastery of Isaiah. It's, I could talk about certain verses and stuff, but so I hope to get a real nice education out of this. But you reminded me of Isaiah as you're talking about, like, okay, so if someone takes your cloak, give them your tunic. Like Jesus does say that, right? Is that the 11th commandment? What is his point as he says that, and who is he talking to?
Right.
He's talking to the Pharisees who believe that justice is more important than mercy. The Pharisees who believe that they can achieve a perfectly just society by means of tit-for-tat legalism, and they don't see the other person. So what he's really condemning is the lack of awareness that you're even dealing with another person at all, right? Who is this person that took your cloak? Why, right? Or is it just eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, right? That the law by itself doesn't justify us. And so that doesn't mean the law isn't good or that we don't need to apply the law, but there are times when applying the law means stopping the person that took your cloak because he's taking your neighbor's cloak and your neighbor's cloak and your neighbor's cloak and your neighbor's cloak, and he's going to like take everyone's cloaks, and that is in fact evil, and he's harming the weak, right? So to be one who protects others, right, is the other side of why not rather be wronged. Okay, so that if someone takes your cloak, give them your tunic, the best way to summarize all the different types of things Jesus says like that is when he says, if Paul says it in 1 Corinthians 6, why not rather be wronged? Like, why are you going to court against your neighbor who's your brother in Christ? Why not just, wouldn't it be a greater thing to just be wronged? But the other side of that is you are charged to protect your community. You are charged to protect your neighbor, your child, and so Isaiah in chapter 1, which is fascinating, especially like, why is this the first thing in the book? It's probably not chronologically the first thing that he wrote, but it's been placed there by the author as the head of the book in order to introduce you to the theme of the book, which is that Jerusalem's done for, that the old covenant's over, that God is going to smash it, even though it's all starting in the year that King Uzziah died, which is a glorious time of Judah and Jerusalem, and Jotham reigns very well. And although Ahaz gets pretty bad pretty quick, Hezekiah comes right back and does some amazing things. So Jerusalem still got some good years ahead of it. However, no, they don't. Ultimately, it's already over. It's already over, and that's his message. But that doesn't mean that you can't repent individually. It doesn't mean that you as a community can't last longer and not be the generation upon whom the destruction comes. It's all about then what's really going on that's wrong is this people's lips confess me, but their hearts are far from me, right? Which again, think Pharisees, think justice without mercy, right? Think religion without faith or trust in the true God. Think that religion based upon what I do, not upon who God is. And so that is ultimately what is being condemned, even in the days of Uzziah and Jotham, where the sacrifices are being done to the level of the days of Solomon and Jehoshaphat. The phrase then that comes to mind, though, is in chapter 1, verse 16 and 17, where after saying that he can't stand their worship, your new moons I hate, your feasts I hate, all this, your prayers I hate, he says, wash yourselves, make yourselves clean, put away the evil of your doings from before my eyes, cease to do evil, learn to do good, seek justice, rebuke the oppressor, defend the fatherless, plead for the widow. All of those, not turn the other cheek as some sort of limp-wristed person who lets evil men be evil men.
Right.
None of them denying turn the other cheek as in, don't think you're God. There's a time to withstand wrong.
Right.
there's a place. Why not rather be wronged? There is something truly glorious in being able to walk away from a fight, right? I think that's what Jesus is getting at again, that the anger of man does not bring about the righteousness of God. All the same, seek justice for others, right? And so you talk about like what happened in our country. It wasn't just the last 3 years. It's been going on a long time. We just figured it out.
It just
last 3 years.
Ice cream kind of hit the fan.
And it showed how unprepared we are as American churches, by and large. There are those that are standing, but by and large, to seek justice.
Right.
We're like, oh, that there's injustice. Well,
it's you keep your head down.
Put the
and
best
you just
construction on the
past.
wicked man. That's right. That's right. I know Herod said to throw the babies into the river, but he means well. Right. So this all came out of you saying, reading the Bible opens your eyes in a way that repeated dogma doesn't, even if the dogma is entirely true.
Right.
Because the dogma ultimately is without context and is about an idea, and it's more about a philosophy. And the Bible, it has philosophy in it, but it's not a philosophy. It is a revelation. It is a vision. That is many visions actually, and it is the pulling back of the curtain to see the mind of God Himself. And God is not a German engineer who diagrams everything so you can memorize it and be right. He's a historian. Yeah, he's a historian and a preacher who tells a story. He's a bard, and telling the greatest story there ever was with himself at the center of it, because he's God, and that's good, and everything's good when he's at the center of it, right? It's not selfish of him. It's selfless, because that's what he does, is he's selfless. That's why mercy is triumphing over sacrifice. That's why the mystery that's really being revealed to the angels and archangels in the heavenly places through the church, Ephesians chapter 3, is that God turning the other cheek is God destroying evil. Like when Jesus turns the other cheek, the devil gets destroyed. And then to imitate that is good. But that's not without the order that we're still built under. Wives, submit to your husbands. Children, obey your parents in the Lord. Right? None of that's gone away. Imagine if every parent just turned the other cheek when the child threw a fit, right? That's not what Jesus meant, right? No. He's not Yoda. He's not just shooting out there single shot bumper sticker proverbs that are almighty, everlasting, single truths. The Sermon on the Mount's a sermon, and it ties together.
Right.
And at the heart of it is blessed are you when others persecute you. So they did for the prophets. But it's persecute you for my name. So really, the place to turn the other cheek is when they're going to take your church away because you're Christians. When they're going to kill you for being a Christian, let them. When they're going to kill you for your stuff, defend your house. There's just a massive difference in those things.
But being able to speak up in a group about the truth is what, especially right now, is like we're being told you can't.
Right.
You have to be tolerant. You have to be kind. You have to be quiet.
Right. So like let your neighbor take your cloak, but then be like, hey, you guys all saw that, right? He took my cloak. Like you're allowed to say he took my cloak. That was wrong. You can say that too. Even as he takes your cloak, and you're like, yeah, I'll let him take my cloak. But it was really wrong. He's an evil man.
Right.
And we're being told you can't say that.
You can't say he's an evil man.
Yeah.
A
thief.
So
the most despised category in all Hebrew thought. Being
able to call evil evil is the superpower that we've been given.
Yeah.
And it's the world is trying to take that from us and silence us, so that nobody knows what evil is, and it can just reign.
Yeah, it is doing so. Talking statues and whatnot. Yeah, brainwashing the populace.
So, it's hard it's hard because there's so much fear in speaking the truth. Like, what if they get mad at me?
Mm-hmm.
What if they hurt me or say something mean to me?
Mm-hmm.
But the truth of the matter is that you've driven home recently with your sermons is that we are immortal. And so what if they get mad at us? It doesn't take away our immortality.
No.
It doesn't take away where we're going, where we're headed. It doesn't even change the journey, the path that God our Father has laid out for us and planned for us. In fact, we were created for such a time as this,
Yes.
specifically. And so you can live each day with the confidence knowing that that's the day you were supposed to live.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of focusing so much on me, knowing that you have a big part in the grand scheme, like the mosaic of his creation and his plan, kingdom. So that's been empowering to me recently.
Yeah.
And bringing this back to the granddaughter and the grandmother, like opening our children's eyes first to the truth of Scripture, that they can stand upon that, and and begin to see the world through those eyes, through the eyes of Scripture, will then enable them to grasp, like you were saying, the doctrine of our church more easily.
Correct. That's exactly right. So the doctrine will come because the doctrine is drawn from
Right.
the Scriptures, right? And not just like, a couple corners, right? And that's kind of the problem, is that we treat it almost like it's just a couple corners. So the Ten Commandments are everywhere. The Creed is everywhere. The Lord's Prayer is everywhere. Whether or not you even use those words to describe it. When Cain kills Abel, you don't have to talk about, well, that's the fifth commandment, for you to see, like, oh, that was bloodshed. That was bad. That was faithless. That was bad. Like that, it's all there. It doesn't have to be in the categories. The categories of the catechism are clear things. And so if you got a dispute, they're really good for solving the dispute. And they're not bad. I mean, I say the Ten Commandments, the Creed, the Lord's Prayer every morning. Say it out loud. So I'm not trying to speak against these things. But for someone to see their value, they first must be just imbibing Scripture. And then for a young person, if they're not willing to be like, yeah, I'll read Matthew this week, Mom, no problem, right? Well, then assign the New Testament comic book instead, and get them to see it. And that's what the Kingston Bible really did that for me 2 years ago when I found it. Maybe it was 3 years ago now. I don't know. The time of the Kings just came alive to me. I just had never seen them as people, and the way that they were portrayed as a little hyper heroic. They're all cooler looking than they probably ever really were. But that was sort of like, I can put faces to names now. When I think of Asa, I think of the face from that comic book now. And that's helpful. Now I know who Asa is. I didn't know who Asa was before. And why did I care, right? And so sparking the imagination, oh, this story is a story. It's not just a list of do's and don'ts. It's not just a bunch of yammering about, some philosophy of how we get out of purgatory or anything like, it's a history. It's the real lore. It's the real book of magic. And careful with that word. I don't really mean magic like manipulation, but I mean like, open your psalter and say it out loud in the name of Jesus every day, and you're better than a wizard. A wizard wishes he could do what you're doing. You're calling on the true God to stand behind you, and he's going to. Right? You say the same psalm every day till it's memorized and never stop. Now you know a spell. You're not just kind of reading the spell. You know the spell. And it's the good spell. Right? The gospel. Yeah, it's the root of the word. And it doesn't mean, again, you're manipulating God. It doesn't mean you're twisting the elements that are behind nature. It does mean that it is an almighty word that has been given to you to speak. You are a You are a avatar of Jesus. And that by definition, communing with him, you are. So now you are one with his body. Why would you not get his mind? And the only way you're going to get that mind is piece at a time. You're not going to memorize the whole Bible in a weekend. And I would, again, don't try to read the whole Bible. I mean, I'm going to now hardcore for a year plus, but that's the Hebron experience. But like for the average person who hasn't read the Bible before, don't try to read the whole Bible. Just read Matthew twice, right? Now read Ephesians like 5 times. Just go back to it. Like get to know a corner of the Bible. And the Psalter and the Proverbs are absolutely the place to just always do this. Yeah. Since I said that, Psalter, Psalms, all this kind of stuff, sonsofsolomon.net is not .com. Some people out there know what I just did. They get that joke. They are old and boring nerds like me. Sonsofsolomon.net, it is a prayer discipline for helping you begin to own the Psalter and the Proverbs as your book of truth. You can get the new packets are coming this Sunday, including Daughters of Wisdom packets for you ladies. They've been waiting. If you don't have your name on the list for us to mail those to you yet, make sure you go to sonsofsolomon.net and contact us there to get us to mail you some of those packets. Yeah, we should have them available. If not Sunday, they'll be available at the main event on in the following weekend at St. Paul. So, but they're supposed to be there this weekend. So, super exciting that there. Let's move into your questions. Bible answers, probably a bit of our nonsense as we go here. And would you believe our first question is not for me?
Sweet Rabbit.
No, it's not for Sweet Rabbit either. And I do have a thought about it that I'll be happy to share. But I also going to avail myself of you speaking to make use of the restroom. But Marlo, excuse me. Sorry, I do have a cold coming on. That sore throat is now mine. Marlo says this. Could you please give, dear Lady Fisk, could you please give any tips on how to avoid becoming a church widow as a pastor's wife? You know what she means when she says that? Yeah?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. I want to support my husband as much as I possibly can and see him feel successful and fulfilled in his work. Yet at the same time, I don't know how to do that and not starve myself of needed emotional, relational nutrients. Time, intentional attention, being big ones for me. Do you have some sort of simple list of needs, recognizing that they will be unique to you, which you keep as the absolute priority to communicate with your husband and let others slide or find other sources? Do the needs I feel go away or change when my children come? How can I avoid finding all my fulfillment in caring for my children, should God bless us, at the expense of then widowing my husband? Please share any thoughts or advice which you have for us. And I want to hear your answer too, but I'm going to let you start it.
Okay.
Cool. Oh, yeah.
Marlo, I remember talking to you recently about some other questions that you had with regards to starting encouraging men to begin groups in your congregation. So I love that you're thinking along these lines and grappling with what it means to be a pastor's wife as you dive headfirst into this vocation that you have been put into. First of all, being a pastor's wife is an extremely wonderful blessing. People see you differently and trust you more than they would just the average person because of the office that your husband holds. And so that is a gift and a blessing. It's also a lot of responsibility. And then knowing that what is shared with you is shared in confidence. That's an important distinction, to know that when we're given information, we don't have the right to just share it with others. The other part of being a pastor's wife is supporting, like you said, supporting your husband in his role as he fathers the congregation. And when we were at seminary, I remember the advice that was given to a group of ladies and I was to be aware of how we responded to our husbands being called away to the bedside of somebody who was sick, or to a family emergency that was being experienced by congregation members, or even may it be like to lock the church when somebody's having trouble locking and setting the alarm system. So you're sitting down to dinner and you finally get that time together, and the phone rings, and father or husband, or he has to go away and be pastor. Sometimes this happens also when you're headed out of town on vacation. Somebody dies and your husband feels it necessary that he rearrange the vacation schedule so that he can minister to the family who is now grieving the death of a loved one. So what I'm trying to get to is your response in those scenarios is really important. And it will empower your husband to do his job, or it will make him feel like he can't do his job. And the encouragement is to have a positive response. So if he gets called away and you have to set his supper aside and warm it up later, or do the bedtime routine yourself with the kids because he's not going to be there, or if you have to rearrange your vacation so that now he can perform the funeral instead of being on vacation, having a good attitude is key. And when that was told to me, I set it in the back of my mind, and I have honestly used it quite a bit. And our kids have grown up and now are honored to have their father be the pastor. They don't begrudge him being a pastor. They don't say things like, "Oh, I will never be a pastor," or "I don't ever want to marry a pastor." The only thing that they are sad about is sitting in the pew without their father there. That's the one thing that they're like, I don't wish for that, but if it happens that my husband is a pastor or a church musician or somebody who's serving on Sunday morning and cannot sit by me, then it'll be okay. They still have a positive outlook. And our prayer is that our children will stay close, and so the family community will still be there as our daughter would sit in the pew by herself with the kids. Like, she won't be by herself, essentially. Instead of her beginning a new pew of her own, our pew will just expand, is the idea. But that's all in the Lord's hands.
Gonna need some bigger pews.
Yeah. Well, and we're finding as the Hebron community,
it's kind of fun. You guys pack
our
it in.
pew expand, like it expands forward and backward now too. So last Sunday, all of the kids were sitting by members of the Hebron community who are young, and there just wasn't space for me. So I sat up in the pew in front of them with what I like to call my foster sons, who are students of Hebron. And so I was surrounded by their robust voices singing, and then had my kids' voices behind me. So it was a true blessing. But as pastor's wife, how do you avoid becoming a widow? Well, I guess we've always looked at this task as something we've done together.
True.
I'm not preaching, I'm not teaching, I'm not administering the sacraments.
Just the pastor's wife.
But, if he's out making a call, I pick up what he cannot do at the home. If
or just an example, maybe not exactly on the question, but there was a text that came through 2 days ago, and it was kind of rough, and you are as much involved in your relationships with these people as I am, and you sent an answer.
I went to the pastoral care companion and found what was appropriate, and then sent that on.
And I looked at it afterwards. I'm like, I can't even add to this. You didn't sign your name, so I'm like, well, it's good enough. I mean, golly. And that, I mean, I don't consider that an infringement on the role. You were just a confessor of the faith, sharing the Bible and offering a prayer with a brother and sister. And so, I mean, what that is for you in your mind, you're never the pastor, but we are here together, and you've seen the role of sort of deaconess as being what pastor's wife really is.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go get a deaconess degree and do a bunch of stuff outside your home, or you can be a deaconess by marrying a pastor and raise your kids and love the church.
And we have been active in having theological discussion throughout our marriage. We're not doing together devotion time has never been strong for us, unfortunately. That is one place where I'm like, oh, that's sad, but we do it separately, and then we come together and we talk about it. So that's a gift. And so I guess that's how I've gotten fulfillment, emotional fulfillment, is by taking interest in theology. I was interested in theology originally, so I had that kind of going for me. But taking interest in what he's learning, what he's studying, and discussing it. And we can't afford to go out often, and we haven't been able to do babysitters. We don't really like the idea of having babysitters for tiny children. And so every night we would, after the kids were put to bed, sometimes I would actually change my clothes into something that was more presentable, and then I would go into his study or wherever he was, and we would spend time chatting for like an hour or two, and then we would probably have like a movie time, because this was back when we were watching movies.
Yeah, but we would always talk.
But there was always the talk time. And sometimes we had wine or chocolate, or, that was just our way of having dates, was being home together and talking.
So that's where, okay, so one thing that's in her question that you're not going to be able to answer is the problem of workaholic pastors and workaholic Missouri Synod pastors. I'm going to start with something that Dr. Kuntz said to me. Again, Adam's great in lots of ways. He has lots of insights. But it really stuck with me. And it was offhanded, and it was not on a show. It was before or after recording a show a while back. And we were talking, I mean, he's an outsider to the LCMS. He wasn't raised a Lutheran. So he's got a real different, he's a Northeasterner. So he's especially not a passive-aggressive German. I mean, there's nothing about him that kind of natively slides into the cult that is the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod.
I just kind of get that from him.
Yeah. The niceness factor just isn't, but he's really nice, but it's not like he's driven by this, put the best construction on it. All of that, again, to call it the cult of the Missouri Synod isn't to say that we're a cult, but we definitely have some strange, eccentric cultural realities about us. And we're that's why someone visits an LCMS church and they're like, I can't join this. I mean, it's not the liturgy. It is not the liturgy. It's the way we are. And much of it is unhealthy. There's a lot of unhealthy. And so he said at one point, he was kind of just exasperated. He just said, you guys work so hard. And that was not a compliment. It was in no way a compliment out of his mouth. It was a complaint about the pastors in the Missouri Synod and this workaholic Protestant work ethic, quote unquote, in which we literally believe that we're going to save the church. And if we don't, it won't. And there's an idolatry of self there. And we're trained into it. We're molded into this need to do everything for this little social club that is either going to stand until Jesus comes back because Jesus wants it to, or it's going to fall. But we're going to do it, and the amount of time then that men give to the task, not of the phone call and the visit. I mean, those are there too, and they take time, but it's actually, there's a lot of consternation time. There's a lot of angst time. There's a lot of overstudy, over-prepare. I'm going to rewrite my sermon one more time so that I can read it with as much energy as I can when I read it to you, right? As an aside, I mean, people have asked me about my preaching style, and I tell you, I don't prepare nearly as much as most guys do. Because when you preach exegetically, you don't have to. So you don't have to spend so much time being a rhetorician, and you can just practice talking about what it says. Anyway, my answer then to you is expect your pastor, your husband, in our system, trained as he is, to be a workaholic and have his conscience completely bound to believing the life and death of the church rests on his shoulders, and whether or not he does this or that today, every day, until it breaks him on some level, and then be there to just support him. You're not the one to tell him this. You're not the one to fix this. But it is going to be something you see him go through. Pray for him, that he realizes that it's not up to him. And so you mentioned the whole vacation, come back early for the funeral. Like, this is exactly the problem.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you flew to the other side of the country, somebody died, and they want the funeral 2 days from now, and they expect you to be there. Like, I get it. I love these people. I want to do your funeral. I'm back in 5 days. Let's work together. But the pastors have been trained to, again, turn the other cheek and, be the floor mat of often people who aren't even coming to church. I mean, the ones who are the most pushy about the funerals are the kids who don't come for their parents. And they have all these wants and all these needs, and I want this and at this time and blah, blah, blah. And like, to have your husband awoken by God to see that it's actually better to fight back. Having boundaries is good.
Yeah.
Right.
But right, like she cannot have boundaries for her
she
husband.
Cannot. Nope.
And so putting it in those terms of like workaholism, that's a little easier to talk to, I guess, because then I can go, what have I done? Over the years to try to find time with you. So setting aside time in the evenings was always important for us. But then I've gone with you on multiple shut-in visits
or like
visits
when I go to a installation, like you always try to come. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we get that little bit of time in the car together. And then, so on the way, we get to have time just chatting about whatever. And then on the way home, we get to talk about the experience we just had. And then the shared experience of being in that scenario together, we can talk about. So, yeah. And then any conference that you go to, if I'm able to go, I'll go.
But okay, so you don't have kids yet. Like, when I think back to how much time I spent getting the bulletin just right.
Oh, and I folded bulletins till my eyes
That's
bled.
just it. Join him in the task. I'll tell you all, the bulletin doesn't matter much. It's nice to have a clean bulletin. It is such a superfluous part of the experience. And the more you can get it on auto repopulate, do it. Don't. And if you have to lay it out every week, man, are you just wasting life? And take 3 years to plan to get them off of this behemoth, whatever it is, where everything's printed.
Everybody throws it away.
Yeah, it just, it's not that hard to use the book, and you can teach it, but take the time. Anyway, but if you have the chance as a wife to help with those things, that takes that off of his. I have to, and most guys, I mean, it's going to be, the bulletin is just going to be a big part of their week, and they're going to spend a ton of time being the best paid secretary in the area. And even if they got a secretary, they're still going to spend all this time on the bulletin. And then, they're writing thesis statements once a week as well. And then they're going to read it, and they want to practice reading it. So, that you can't really help him with that, but, you can ask him about it though. I mean, that'd be something. I mean, ask him if I just mentioned Isaiah, right? So for the next couple of weeks, if you ask about Isaiah, I'll just start barfing on you,
Buyer beware.
That kind of thing. But ultimately, you need to pray that he sees that he doesn't have to work that hard soon. That would be my main answer.
Yes. The important little bit of information that I was given at seminary just through observation was there's an encouragement on pastors' wives to have their own ministry. Mm-hmm. And so there's that encouragement. And then there was the other encouragement that I received that was just a one-liner from a wizened pastor's wife whose husband had moved up in the ranks, and I believe that he was the president of the seminary at the time. I believe that this came from the president's wife. Mm-hmm. And she said, no matter what, bear in mind that every time you say yes to one thing, mm-hmm. you're saying no to another. Mm-hmm. So if you are saying yes to all these tasks at church, like you're going to be the organist and the secretary and the ladies guild leader, recognize you're probably going to end up saying no to your family. Mm-hmm. And right now, Marlo, your family is your husband. And so the more that you take on that's away from his focus, the more that your ability to just be there and be his helper mm-hmm. will be strained. So my goal in recognizing that there was this pressure to have my own ministry, which really made me uncomfortable at seminary, my goal was to create a place of refuge for my husband to come. And that was it. Where is that? That's the home. Be busy at home. Be his helper out of the home. And that essentially is what we've done. And why am I even on this show? Well, to be honest, an old contemporary Christian artist had a podcast, and I listened one time, and she said, I went through a winter season with my husband, and I realized how important sowing into my marriage was. And I was like, okay, that's really, really fancy evangelical talk. What does that mean? Because it sounds pretty and it sounds biblical, but what does that look like? And after thinking about it for a while, I realized, what does a farmer do? So you have a field, and to sow is to plant. So I'm planting seeds into my marriage. What does that look like? Does that look like me just going away and doing my own thing and finding my own friends? No, it actually means investing in my marriage. Mm-hmm. Where is my husband stressing out? And can I help? Well, his Saturday morning show was really stressful for him, and it caused quite a bit of just angst in his Friday and his Saturday following the show. And then prior to the show. So I thought, well, I don't know what I can do, but I can be willing. And so I came to him and I said, I don't know what I can do, but I'm willing to help. And here we are today. Mm-hmm. Over time, it changed and morphed and became what it is. But so that for me was how I became less of a widow.
You invested in what I was already doing.
Yeah. Instead of investing in me and trying to be like, well, I deserve to do my own thing, which.
So he's at church late on Tuesday night, working on his this and that, like go sit in the pew.
Yep.
Pray the Psalter. Just be like, hey, I'll be in there. Be in the same building, you know? And then when you have the kids, be home, caring for the kids. Be ready to see him when he comes home.
Yeah.
Want to see him when he comes home.
Train the children to say, Father or Daddy or Yay, you're home.
Don't
and
ask him how he's
welcome
feeling.
him.
Ask him what he did. Right? Don't say, how are you? Say, what'd you do today? You know, and let him talk, because he probably needs to just unload a lot. Be his confidant. Be the one you can trust. Don't tell other people what he said.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah. Will the kids make me a workaholic wife? I mean, you have the same potential, especially if he's not around. And there's a potential that he's not around because he's workaholic, and you throw yourself into the kids, and then suddenly he wants to be around, and now the situation's reversed. Only he's got the headship, and he's going to say, "I want time." And so I think that's a fair question too, and it starts with the same answer: is pray right now for wisdom to see clearly how to sow into each other, and how to not work so hard. I don't mean don't do what needs to be done, but I mean recognize that not everything you want to do needs to be done, and a lot of the angst or the weight comes not from what needs to be done, but from what you want to do, the expectations.
Yeah. So, I'm like kind of overwhelming myself with all sorts of thoughts as I interrupt you.
Cool.
Shutting off Pinterest is huge. If you are a workaholic type personality, getting off Pinterest is going to help you.
Or Facebook or Instagram or any of these things that provide you, because they all overlap. They're providing you this expectation world. Right.
The idea behind Pinterest is I can go there and I can get all these ideas of how to do the birthday party. No. Just have a birthday party if you want to, or don't. Like your baby's nursery. Just...
The kid don't care that much.
Really? Like, if you have it be a room that provides you with peace when you walk in there, usually that means just less things. It doesn't have to be perfectly decorated, but just less things.
Yeah.
So that there's you face less decision fatigue when you walk in.
Right.
Beautiful. Beautiful nursery. That will work. These constant inputs, and you can find them in magazines too, like Pioneer Woman. I picked up her magazine at the library, and immediately it was like, oh, my kitchen should look like that.
Yeah, borrowed expectations.
Oh, if I wear this outfit, then I will look like I'm ready for fall.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
because you have to look ready for fall.
And
oh my goodness,
it's so intoxicating.
Yeah. Notice the connection to I mentioned this earlier in the show. The images. Mm-hmm. The power of images. Idolatry is the worship of an image.
Amen. If I take other people's images out of my mind, I am so much more content with what's in front of me. Mm-hmm. My kitchen, though it has bright yellow countertops
and puke green linoleum floor that's falling apart. Yes, the dog likes to chew on it.
But it can be clean.
Yeah.
And a clean kitchen is just as beautiful as a
doesn't make the food taste better to have it pretty.
Kitchen. And beautiful meaning a place of respite, a place of gathering for your family.
Doesn't make it taste better to have it be pretty there. And let me tell you, there was that little conversation last night about, why don't you just roast the roast? Well, that's what a roast is for, is roast it. That's why I call it a roast. And, you know, the kids are kind of like, please don't. And you're like, well, we kind of like it this other way. And then you spent all that time and you made that roast, and John ended up cooking some of it. But that was so good. It was so good. Mm-hmm. And the whole group, the whole fellowship was eating that, with the supplement of everything else that was brought. And well, what you learned to do that in this kitchen, right? The
That's
kitchen did not impact your ability to cook, except for if it's dirty.
Right.
And then it does. So what you have, and then this all came out of the expectations, the input expectations from other people that we wear on our souls, and turning those off. The easiest way is turn it off.
If you want to be content with the home you're living in, turn off other people's expectations.
Yeah.
Don't let them in. And I tell you, do it for like a month. I don't go to Walmart and buy stuff. Like, go to Walmart and buy what's on your list that you need.
Don't go shopping.
Don't go shopping.
Yeah.
And you will find more contentment in what you have than you've had in a long time. It's so crazy.
So for a book rec here, not that she necessarily needs this, but a book on minimalism. What's the one that we bought for next door for the library?
It's All Too Much is one that you got for me initially with minimalism. The Joy of Tidying Up, I think, by Marie Kondo is another one that I've enjoyed.
Beware the Paganism, but a good book.
Right. And then, Loving the House That You're In is another one that I've appreciated as I've tried to love our home, though it not be the dream house I envisioned when I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
So.
What is the dream house you envisioned when you were 10?
Oh, it's like 100-year-old farmhouse with a porch that you can sit on in rocking chairs and like watch either the sunrise or the sunset. Our house is facing north. But it faces south, and so you can look at the lake and you can watch the sunrise and the sunset that way. And we could put rockers, but yeah, we could put rockers on our back porch.
You still don't have an overhang.
I just love the welcome. Like, to me, the whole, yay, you're here idea is like, come to my front door. Don't come to my back door. No.
But that's just the way it is here. It's just come to the back door. The back door is the front door.
Yeah. So that was kind of my growing up was like, yep, that's a home.
Okay.
But I never had that. I never grew up in a home like that.
Right.
So I think it just came from my infatuation with agricultural lifestyle. And so what kind of a home do you have? Well, you have an old farmhouse. And what does an old farmhouse look like? Well.
So we looked at that one house when we were looking here. It was way too much. It was like right off the freeway. Do you remember that? Like
yeah.
And it had
the
that
wraparound
wraparound
porch.
So like that a little more.
A little bit. Yeah.
That one had a lot of issues inside though in terms of space.
Yeah, I wasn't in love with that one. You know, honestly, the one with the basement that was all decrepit and like falling apart. There was a house that we looked at and it was 100 years old, and you walked in and it was a little bit slanty and there was all sorts of funny weirdness.
The house was falling apart.
Yeah, the whole house was falling apart. Like that one was like, oh, I like this. But then there was another one. There were several. There were several that we looked at that were like, ah, this is it. And they weren't it though, because Hebron wouldn't have happened in any of those.
Well, that's what I mean. I don't know.
This is my home.
I love our home.
And
I love it more the more we're here. And I know it's not, I mean, the floor plan is like, I just would have done it different if I
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the walls is kind of the problem. But I don't know. I like to think of it as a little spaceship that we have to live in as we're flying through space. And actually, if you think, imagine our deck with the gazebo as like the pilot's space, right? And then, like down here's the command center, right? And you got the galley right off of the bridge, which is the deck. And then you imagine that we're on this giant ball that's rolling through space around the sun. And it's like, we're flying. We're on a spaceship. And so since we're stuck on a spaceship flying through space, like it's a very livable spaceship. Like it's really not too bad. You just got to go around to get to the stuff. And so putting it in those terms, it's a great mobile home.
It is. And I love it more and more as we put ourselves in the space the way that we need it. I was talking to your mother yesterday about this, actually. We are a people who need creative space. We don't need a house of bedrooms. We need a home where we can create. And so the majority of our rooms are actually designed to be workspaces. So we have a music space in the front. We have this space, the studio, Jonathan workroom here. Upstairs, there's a sewing and Lego space, Lego whatever.
It's become a Lego space, yeah.
And then we have a desk room for kids to do their work at. And then I have, where I spend most of my time is in the kitchen. And that's a workspace too. But there are only, with 7 people, there are only 2 rooms dedicated to beds.
Yeah. And one of them is very large.
And it takes a little bit of thought. Like because we don't leave our home, like you and I do not leave the home to produce.
Yeah.
We stay here. It took us a little while to figure out, like, we don't need to retreat to our home to rest the way that others who leave the home and experience all day long away would need to come home and just find that quiet sleep.
TV corner.
We need a home. Well, yeah, a TV corner, but then also like the bedroom to sleep in. We need a space. We need a home that's going to house us throughout the day as we create and work. And so as we've rearranged things, that's helped a lot. I'm feeling my discontent is more coming from it's time to purge.
That's there. I think this half of the house is great. I
It's
think
fabulous.
That
yeah.
half of the house is still not where it needs to be. And I don't know what that means.
If I could take the time to transition the various workspaces that I sit at, so the kitchen and then my desk, if I allowed myself the time and the thought to actually work on those and create a space that would rejuvenate me, be it the colors, be it the lack of clutter or things, then I think I could find a lot more rest in just the design of our home. I think my heart would be like, yep, this is it. But I haven't allowed myself that time because I've allowed myself to think and do over in another kitchen that I get to use in another home that we've set up, Hebron.
I'm just thinking about the space still. I want your desk in the kitchen, but
I would like that as well. I think the whole family would love that. Because when Mother's outside of the kitchen, the family freaks out just a little. Just a little. Where's Mother? Like, where'd she go? And now, though, if the dog's not home, everybody kind of knows she's walking.
She's walking the dog. Yeah, that's right. So we're recommending then for Marlo all those books, one of those books.
Well, I think if you're looking for minimalism, and I don't know why she's looking for minimalism.
I'm suggesting that the mindset of minimalism might be something she can do to focus on while he's away and then be prepared for him to come home into a space that is welcoming. Yeah,
that's true. That would give her a good focus. Loving the House You're In by Renee. Is it Renee? Ooh. Renee Page. Something Page.
Frisbee will find it. It'll be in Mad Mondays. You can sign up for Mad Mondays at madpxm.com.
I think that does a really good job talking about the home and what you want to achieve with your home,
right?
Rather than focusing. And then Marie Kondo's book, is it The Joy of Tidying Up? I think she'll walk you through making a space that you enjoy being in,
right?
And both of those books together. It's All Too Much is going to help you to
Purge.
Clear your whole shelf of books.
This is also recommended because of the question about being a workaholic wife and over focusing on the kids. And a lot of times people do over focus on the kids, not on the kids, but on all the stuff. And
that's true. I was gonna say
getting the baby nursery already isn't taking care of the baby.
No.
You know, the baby wants to be held like for hours.
Yeah.
Don't let go.
I don't know if you can be a workaholic parenter if you're going to keep your children with you. Does that make sense? Like if I am going to invest my day in having my children like be tomato staked to me and they come with me everywhere, you're going to have a very different view than if you're just I'm setting up Timmy's birthday party, so I need to have a sitter come and watch him.
Right.
And I'm going to focus on all these
thinking of workaholic parenting in the sense of doing poor boundaries with the kids and the kids running the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Which people manage to do that while outsourcing their kids quite a bit. Then when their kids are around, the kids run the show. And so demand for time.
Or getting into that
is demand.
We need to have them involved in all these XYZ activities.
But I mean, in my mind, and this is something that we do have sometimes. So, you and I are talking, someone comes in and just speaks in the middle of it, and you turn and you give them full attention and focus on them instead. That to me is like the definition of it, right? The kind of thing that in general we want to fight against that. We want the kids to be part of our conversation, not come and become the conversation, right? And so as a parent to be thinking about minimalism again is a way to try to create the space in which the human relationships are the things that matter, right? And then from there, building on good human relationships. So for parenting, I mean, boundaries. You got to read boundaries if you're going to raise kids. Yeah, and you can definitely pick up Wild Things for your sons. We don't have a good book on daughters yet, do we?
No, there's one that goes kind of hand in hand with Wild Things. So it's a child psychology team, and the man wrote Wild Things, and then the girl wrote Worry-Free Girls. Her name is something Gaff, and she talks about raising girls in a way that I guess it's very prevalent for girls to be anxious in this
right now
era.
Yeah.
And so it's trying to pinpoint as the mother or the father or both your own anxieties and not you're going to pass them forward a little bit, but not overpassing them forward.
The more the girl has to be a man, the more anxious she's going to become.
Yeah. So that one's Worry-Free Girls. And I haven't read as much about it, but I did listen to a podcast with the two authors, and I appreciated their worldview. All right.
If you're going to go buy some books, you can pick up Without Flesh. Brian says, I'm planning on buying Without Flesh on CPH. I've been eyeing it on Amazon, but it's $23. I can't believe it's $23.
Wow. Inflation much?
I guess. CPH has a sale, so since I have to pay for shipping, yeah, right. I'm adding that one into the mix. Pumped to read it. It is the best book I have written, and really worth your time no matter what denomination you are from, although it will tell you why I'm a Lutheran without saying it that way at all.
As we were talking about Echo being kind of the pre-confirmation, during confirmation book, like actually right before your first communion.
Without Flesh.
Without Flesh would be so beautiful. If you have the ability to read and comprehend what you read. I don't know. I haven't read it for a little while, so I'm not as familiar with exactly how nuanced it is, but I feel like it was very accessible.
Spent enough time on it. So it ought to be.
I loved it. It was my favorite.
We're going to move on here. Next question, Pastor Meridith. Thank you for all you do. I have been learning a lot these past few weeks listening to the podcast. Rock on. I was invited by a group of people from a new local church in the area to attend their Bible study group and have been going for a while. It is a Wesleyan church. This means like Methodist, and probably actually it sounds like Bible believing Methodist, like real Methodist, not like the United Methodist Church, which is just woke. It's got about 40 members. It was a very small church plant that is trying to grow and expand, and I have since made good friends with a group of the guys. I don't necessarily think it's wrong to be in a Bible study per se, as they do profess Jesus' death and resurrection and all the other fundamental beliefs of Christianity, except baptismal regeneration and the Lord's Supper being the true body and blood of Jesus. So, I mean, it's kind of a big deal. Without flesh, you should pick it up. And you think, okay, so they disagree about that, but we agree about everything else. It's
going to kind of permeate
It's like a chemistry set. Yeah. And it's not that they're all evil all the time, but I would not want to learn from a pastor who has no sacramental understanding. A little
leaven,
yeah,
isn't that something somewhere?
It is. I mean, to sit down with a group of guys from different denominations and talk about what we believe is one thing. To be discipled by someone who believes something that we vehemently disagree with is another thing. So that's kind of the issue there. It says, I do recognize that as a non-Lutheran church, they differ on certain doctrines like baptism and communion, for example. I am the only Lutheran in the men's group. The rest of the members of the group already go to the church. Some members are even pastors of the church. Yeah, so you're their mission. You realize that, right? They're trying to get you. They do know that I am a Lutheran and are okay with me joining the group because they want you to become one of them. And they don't pressure me to go to their church. No, they just believe over time that you will. The men's group, and you might, honestly. I mean, it's just kind of, you've got the social connection there that it would seem your church doesn't provide for you, right? So there's nothing like this at your church, which is sad, but true, right? So the men's group also does volunteer work in the community, which I join in with as well, and less of an issue there. That's probably the part you should stick to. However, my concern is whether I am becoming too involved in a church or group that I know I won't join. Yes. Going to Bible study at a church that is not a church you would worship at is going to worship at a church that you would not worship. A Bible study is worship. You just don't sing. Okay. But it's preaching. Okay. So I'm jumping ahead. He's got more questions, but my answer is stop going to Bible study and hang out with them and all the other stuff they do. No, but get out of the Bible study. I don't want to really burn any bridges, as many of them are Christian friends, and we even hang out in non-religious settings. Like, keep doing that. But I'm wondering if there is some wisdom on what lines I should not cross. Yeah, I just wouldn't. I wouldn't go to the Bible study in which I'm the only one who is not believing what they're teaching. I would go if I were the one teaching it. Right? I'd teach a bunch of people who don't believe what but I would not go. And I mean, it's just, you're just over time going to move. Over time, they're going to change you. Mm-hmm. Or you're going to become really bitter and angry about it at some point. Which events or volunteer opportunities should I partake in, and to what extent should I bring up my beliefs in the men's group Bible study with me being the guest? I'd be like all the time, oh, well, I'm the guest and I think that's wrong. But the thing is, like, are you prepared to think that's wrong? The fact that you've gone this far, this long, without being like, oh man, I can't, this Bible study just drives me nuts, tells me you're maybe not picking up on some of the problems they're laying down in your soul with regard to the way they will view sanctification, holiness, righteousness, how you please Jesus. Or even how you hear from Jesus. Now, I could be completely off base, and maybe this is the most Lutheran Wesleyan church there's ever been, and they have a high sacramentality for Wesleyans, which is possible because they're kind of Episcopalians in a weird way. And they just are so biblical that they really are great. And like I've shared before, like at a certain point, there are all sorts of other non-Lutheran groups that have a far better trust in Jesus than you experience in many Lutheran congregations from the people. So it's not as though all Lutheran churches build you up. It's not. It's not true. So, don't get me wrong, but there is no way a Wesleyan's not going to teach you Wesleyanism. And Wesleyanism, at the end of the day, is going to be putting your hope back on you. That's bad, right? He says, I feel being too argumentative in a group of people set in their beliefs might cause more harm than good. Well, true. So why are you there? For the fellowship? You mean for the hanging out? Do that everywhere else they are. And just don't go to the Bible study. Also, is it wrong to recommend other churches if only to just get them connected to the place that does provide Christ versus being outside of any church where they don't get any fellowship. You mean like for them to go? But why? No, it's not wrong to invite them to your church if that's what you're asking. But they're trying to plant a church. That's why they're there, right? But he says, for example, I met someone. Oh, I see what you're saying. I met someone who was looking for a church and had none. He probably would never come to my Lutheran church based on conversations I had with him, but I did end up recommending the other church mentioned above as it did seem closer to what he was looking for. Yeah, I don't know if that's wrong, but it's not always right either. There's no black or white answer to that. I mean, yeah, if you meet someone who is a Wesleyan and they're looking for a good Wesleyan church, and you know of this good Wesleyan church that believes Jesus rose from the dead, he's coming again at the last day, he forgives you of your sins because he's the atoning sacrifice of the world, like, yeah, I recommend that Wesleyan church or Calvinist church or what have you. And if your Lutheran church is just unvisitable and stodgy and heartless, move. I mean, that's kind of the thing. So, based on conversations, he wouldn't come to my church. Well, I'm at a loss a little bit there. I get it. Mm-hmm. We really turn people off, and I'm not sure why. I kind of know why, and I kind of don't know why. Expectation that people will fit in. We don't realize how different our culture is, and then we're not prepared to just overwhelm newcomers with welcome, basically, and tell them that we're glad they're there and want to see them again, and just really socially grab them.
Is he done?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, I was curious about what is his name?
Tom.
What if Tom decided, I'm going to take Pastor's advice and I'm going to go just to the volunteer or social activities, but I'm not going to go to the Bible study, and instead I'm going to pick up one of Kyle and Dalich's commentaries or one of the Concordia commentaries, and I'm going to read that book of the Bible and read the commentary alongside of it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to read the Book of Concord or just even the Augsburg Confession.
Right. Right.
I really want to understand what I believe and why I believe it, so that when I go into scenarios like this, I can know, this isn't right, and I'm not comfortable. Because if he's recommending that other Christians join this Methodist church or Wesleyan church, it just,
it's like you're already part of the church.
It doesn't sound like
sense.
he really understands the importance that we hold to in our doctrine. Because you would never want to, yes, I guess a Wesleyan church might be what somebody else is already thinking, but our point would be, no, don't encourage them to continue in seeing the Lord's Supper or baptism in a false way.
In a weak way.
A weak way.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of rough. Because on the one hand, we really need to be better at recognizing the Christianity of other Christians than we are. I think that'll make us better at being the Christians that we are.
Right.
But at the same time, we need to embrace more fully not the belief that they're all wrong, but the belief that we have something terribly right, and shamelessly say that that's what we have. No, you really need to come to my church because the body and blood of Jesus are offered there. You really got to check this out. You got to ask my pastor about this. Here's a book.
So what does the Wesleyan belief is that it's a representation,
they're
or
like
that we are joined together in our commitment to Christ by eating and drinking?
Yeah, it's going to be different based upon whoever teaches it, because there's a more wide freedom to sort of believe what you want to believe. So you might even find Wesleyans who believe it's the body and blood of Jesus, but not everyone in the church will believe that. And again, this is where they'll say, well, I believe it, and so my pastor doesn't have to believe it. And that's really interesting. So you believe for you it's the body and blood of Jesus, but not for them, right? Or it is for them and they just don't know it, and it's benefiting them even though they don't know it, contra 1 Corinthians 11, maybe, probably. So but most aren't going to end up there. it's going to be a kind of a form of spiritualizing it. Jesus is present, but it's do this in remembrance of me. That's the point. It's not it's remember me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was
very private, emotional experience. Wouldn't want to have it too often because it wouldn't mean as much. Right?
So this is like the Bible believing non-denominational church.
They kind of are, yeah.
too?
Methodism really has become. I mean, the Methodist Church went liberal, but then the evangelical churches effectively are Methodists. I mean, if you took Wesley's doctrines and didn't tell them it was John Wesley, and you just asked, "Do you believe this? Do you believe this? You'd kind of get evangelicalism.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when we went down south to Louisiana and visited that congregation, the belief about what's happening in the Lord's Supper, I don't know if that was the congregation member or the congregation's belief, but it was what the member that we visited with felt. She was saying that no, it's just about kind of that yoga experience where all these lights come together. So all the faithful come together and they remember at that moment. And so that's where the power is. But really I could kind of do it on my own because it's between me and Jesus.
Right.
Right. But it's just a moment of remembering. So it's not like,
right. It's spiritualized.
I'm receiving forgiveness or receiving any of promise at my baptism type.
Yeah, no, you're not being made one with the body of Christ in any real way.
Yeah, you're being made one with the believers.
You don't believe in a real
believers.
You don't believe in a physical presence of Jesus.
Right.
You believe in a spiritual presence of Jesus. And in that regard, it's really about your heart and your emotions.
Yes, she mentioned it's a very spiritual thing. And so the unity comes with the fellow believers that are also
you're all trying to feel
focused.
You're trying really hard
direction.
to feel the same way. And the funny thing is, like, we almost have it the same in that we just don't have to try to feel the same way. We're going to chew on the bread. I feel it. It feels the same to all of us. Drink the wine. It tastes the same to all of us. And then there's a promise about these things. But the value of the supper is not how much I felt it, right? For them, the value of the supper is how much you feel it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I just was curious if that could be something that Tom could focus more on.
It's the reason why I'd have trouble telling someone, yes, go to this other church.
Like maybe committing that time, since he already committed it to studying the Bible, maybe committing it to studying the Bible with some more Lutheran.
Right. The question is, are there any men at your church you talk to ever? And if you do, would they ever get together once a week just to read the Bible together? Would your pastor support this thing? Like if 2 or 3 of you get together, like that's good. That's good. Now you're getting together and just read the Bible. Just read it together and see what happens. I mean,
and if there's nobody doing it on his own with a resource at his side, might give him some support, some help. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that you need yes, you need a pastor in your life. I would rather have 3 of my men getting together for breakfast on Saturday mornings, reading through 1 Chronicles, than not. I don't have to be there. I would hope that they would, if they got in an argument about what it said, ask me rather than fight each other. And I would hope that if one of them decided to say, well, the body and blood of Jesus is not God, that the other one would say, we need to talk to pastor about this, right? Like, but I would rather have, just like a family, I don't need to be in the house for every family to have the Bible taught in their house. So why can't a couple of men get together and read the Bible? It doesn't have to be the conventicle movement of pietism for this to be a thing, right? So the conventicle movement is like the real church meets outside of the worship and has spiritual experiences together and on and on. It is like a proto-charismaticism. Like that was wrong. That was bad. And it was very anti-pastoral. Like, no, the pastor's not allowed to come, right? So that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, just get together with your friends who go to church. And so like find 2 guys. Ask your pastor, are there like 2 guys at church that care?
Yeah.
Like, would they be willing to like read the Bible together? Pastor, do you want to come? You're welcome to come. But like, you don't have to come either. Like, we're just going to read it. We're going to read Proverbs together. 1 chapter a week for 31 weeks, like half a year. Just do it. And read it out loud together. And then talk about what it means. And yeah, you're probably going to, some of it will be wrong. Because that's the point of Proverbs, actually.
Or you could also do the Hebron
expose your error.
readings.
You could, although we're shifting.
But that's a lot.
Hard shift coming your way. 5th gear. November.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this a good time to jump on board?
Only if you want more.
Woo.
Here's the thing. You can do it any way you want.
Mm-hmm.
So we're adopting something that is called the Horner method, although I am repurposing it because I don't quite understand a few decisions he made. So it's easy, though, to shift that gear. A Horner method divides the Bible into, I think it's 10 categories.
Okay.
Plus Psalms and Proverbs. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's, I don't know what the number is. I think I've got it in mine in 9 categories.
Okay.
So you have these chunks of books that are sort of related to each other, and you read 1 chapter a day from each chunk. So you're looking at like 9 to 11 chapters a day. But you're going to get through if you do it, if you do it, you're going to get through the whole Bible twice in a year, then some.
So we talked about Hebron, like changing into more of a.
It's a gap year Bible school for men, and I just don't feel like the Hebron readings are nearly enough to push these guys to like have to be in the Bible all the friggin' time.
And
excuse my language, but
yeah, I'm feeling like, so we had talked about making more of a superimposed schedule from the top. Mm-hmm. So this Horner method you think is a really good time to begin now, and are we going to have more of a less of a self-guided scheduling come
no, because
November
it's so much reading. I mean, I don't know. They can't all do it at the same time.
Because if
they're going to need to spend a lot of time in their Bible.
Back off on some other engagements.
Well,
maybe.
the issue with workload and whatnot is in flux. But I mean, one's going to go down to 2 days instead of 3, and because he wants what he's getting here, and so he knows what's up. The other one he's quitting one, and on and on. So the one's a school guy. Again, it's different for each one of them.
Yeah, I just was thinking. I really like the idea of saying today's farm day. Today's
So for you who are contemplating coming here, we're very much in a learning process, and we do have farm jobs available for you. By the way, if you want to come, you won't get paid well, but you get paid enough to make your money to go to Hebron, and whatnot. But no, when they come in now. We've learned enough to set different boundaries, right? But it's hard to say to someone, quit your job this week, right? Like, so trying to help him come to his own conclusion on that, which he has actually.
Well, right. That's why I was like, ooh, are we really going to start this now? Wow. Okay. Cool.
I'm just going to impose the reading schedule on them and emphasize at every time we get together that this is why you're here.
Yeah.
Is this reading schedule?
Good.
I'm going to try to talk about what we're reading more with them. Although, again, we're reading Skin in the Game, and I'm lecturing on Proverbs, and we did, eschatology on Thursday night, how the Sheol versus hell versus heaven versus all
nice.
That whole map of
yeah.
eschatology. And good time to jump on. Look, so you've got these 10 sections or 11 sections. I don't know the number. I'll have to memorize the number. Like, you don't have to do all of it. Mm-hmm. You can do 2 sections, 1 chapter every day.
Yeah.
And there's a set of tables where you can just mark off what you've read.
Right. So
as you go,
incorporate Chloe's little sheet that she made?
No, I took somebody else's sheet that's a lot like that one.
Oh, okay. Because I've been enjoying this since I'm an utter failure at the Hebron reading schedule, and as far as getting
this is cool.
to it. So
did she make this whole thing?
She did.
Well, I can give her the other one and maybe she can make, but she hand wrote those?
No, it's all computer generated.
Wow.
So
it's a cool font. Looks like handwriting.
Just
but you cross
it off as you read the Bible.
So
chapter.
this will be like that, only instead of just the Bible,
it'll have your section.
You're going to have sections. And the sections are set up so that each section has between 140 and 160 chapters.
Okay.
Except for the Proverbs and the Psalms.
Cool.
They're set up differently. And so, I don't know how you really rotate over. You're going to end up ahead or behind in various things, but in just straight on in a year, you're going to get through it twice.
Cool.
And it's going to be thematic. So you're never going to leave Jesus behind. You're never going to leave Paul behind. You're always going to be in the prophets. You're always going to be dealing with David and Solomon and the kings. You're always going to have Torah.
And it's just one chapter in each of these sections? Cool.
Yeah. So we'll get that published also in Mad Mondays and uploaded to Discord for those of you who want to join us in that. And if you were really enjoying the Hebron lecture and you're like, no, don't stop. I just can't keep producing.
So, okay.
That's
So this is my question. Does this horns? Is it horns? Who put it together? Horner. Now, is it all set up for you, or are you going to need help inputting that?
I've took someone else's and I photo copy pasted.
Oh.
And so I have it. It could look better.
Okay.
We could do it again, but I've got it.
But essentially, it's ready to just go. I love that! Yay!
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. So I still recommend everyone continue to read a proverb a day and write down something on it. Although the Horner method will have you read a chapter a day, and I don't know. That's one place where I might fudge because I don't want to give up my
one verse a day.
I don't want to give up my chapters 1 through 8 section every day that goes through the month, and I don't want to give up. I'm certainly not going to give up my Psalm 119 every day.
I have been doing the Psalm 119 before. So there are various, how do you say it? Pious things that people do to prepare for communion. And then once they've received it, when you are in the pews.
Oh, that's a good time for it.
And I have been loving Psalm 119 because I noticed like for years and years and years, I will come back to the pew and then I'll just start singing the hymn because that's what's happening. But there are my brothers and sisters who do this pious, head down, eyes closed prayer time. And I think it's beautiful, but nobody ever trained me to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're saying. I know that they do have the before you receive communion and after you receive communion in the front of the hymnal. But it's not in the personal ones. It's only in the pew ones.
I know,
so if your church doesn't,
high quality leather one, it doesn't get it. Yeah, that's funny.
So anyhow, so I've started doing Psalm 119 and I've been astounded by how spot on, if you, in the moment of receiving the Lord's Supper, like what is spoken of his commandments and his law, and you see it through the promise instead of like the 10 Commandments. It's so beautiful and enriching to read them 119, those sections.
Yeah.
So that's my little thing.
I don't want to give up. 119 is so good. 8 verses at a time. Don't read the whole thing straight through and ponder. And it's so good. So I don't want to give that up. I don't want to give up reading Proverbs 1 through 8 in chunks. So I will probably just continue on my own daily Proverbs reading plan. Because the other thing I really didn't like giving up was I didn't read a chapter a day. I read a page a day, which is almost a chapter of Proverbs.
Okay.
So it's a little less than a chapter, but then you'd actually flip past chapters every day as well. And that just seemed to be like, if I just look at that page and then I sort of kind of learn where the proverb is in my Bible too. And I just sort of, regurgitate all of that. So I probably will do that rather than just the way that the Proverbs is set up is 1 chapter a day, 31 days, and then repeat. And I'll probably not do it exactly that way, but I'll make the guys over there do that.
Well, and
they can do it my way, I guess, if they want.
Kind of get their own.
Right.
It's
But
communal, but it's
I have to
also
force
personal.
on them the Horner method though as a whole. But if they want to adopt my approach to the Proverbs rather than
And do extra.
yeah, it's actually more. Right. So
We won't stop you from doing extra.
Right. So all right, we're almost at noon.
And we have gotten 2
And-
questions.
Yeah. This next one maybe we can do a little quickly. It's sort of an interesting question, and I titled the show Christmas in October, and we haven't even gotten near it yet, so we need to do this question. Anxious Alaskan says, RevFisk and Meridith, with Advent and Christmas coming up, really? Would you mind sharing different traditions and teachings you did with your family, children in the home to help teach what this time of year is about? I'm a mom with 2 boys, 6 and 2. I've seen examples of the Jesse tree. You know what that is? I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's a fellow Alaskan creator.
But I don't know anything about the tradition or where it originated from, she says. Thank you so much. May you always be reminded of the joy we have in Jesus in the ups and downs of life. Anxious Alaskan. So, there you go.
So what do we do? What have we done?
And if you know what the Jesse
Advent-
tree is, go ahead and talk about
I
it.
don't know
Oh,
a
okay.
lot about it. It's a little bit like the Easter eggs where you open an Easter egg and it has something that's biblical or Christ-centered and tells the story of the resurrection or the
Plastic
death.
Easter eggs.
Yeah. But it's the Christmas version, I think.
Okay. It's like an advent
And
calendar.
then a fellow Lutheran who I believe lives up in Alaska, she has recently created a more Lutheran version of it. So anyway, I have not done that. We have done various things, but the one thing that's been a constant is the Advent wreath.
The advent calendar, too. The sewing one.
Yeah, that's true.
That has been so constant. That's more constant than the advent wreath.
Oh, that's true.
It's like the kids fight over it.
Yeah, they do every year.
Yeah.
Every year.
Because it's like and my mom made it. It's like the backdrop of the crest as a bit of cloth. And
Yeah,
then,
so you have the creche.
and then you have little buttons that are all the different beings that would be in the creche, and they're all in a different pocket with a different number on it. And so each day you get to pull out a cow or a star and point where it goes. The mother sews it on, and everyone stands around like, "Oh, you got to pick that one this year." Oh.
Or don't put it there.
Yeah, right,
we always
right.
have the one person who decides to make the shepherd like upside down on
Yeah, right.
on the
The one person, the son. We always have the boy doing strange things with the creatures.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we do have an Advent calendar.
Yeah.
We have Advent, and then ours is not focused on Santa Claus. So Santa Claus,
That's
Saint
key
Nicholas
if you're gonna
really
ask
is
us.
not
Yeah.
in our celebration of Advent or Christmas.
We don't do anything that people would consider in the secular world Christmas.
Right.
We have none of it.
We like Saint Nicholas. We're excited about being in paradise with him.
Sure.
And our children know him as a pastor.
Reindeer and snowmen and just the whole Winterfest experience, elves, like none of that. We do have a pickle.
We have a
I
pickle.
don't know if that's the most secular thing in the world. We have the Christmas pickle, but
And we do have a Christmas tree.
often.
But
This
this
year it'll be
year we
interesting.
won't.
Yeah.
We've talked about if people are going to be over at Hebron, we might just do it over there. And then that would give us a safe place. Oh, we have a puppy.
Your big puppy's going to eat the tree stuff. Going to take it down.
He
Choo,
eats
choo, choo.
everything. So why would he not eat the tree?
Yeah, I know it seems wise to not
So,
put the glass ornaments up.
We just thought that sounds like a headache waiting to happen. So let's just forego it.
And I'm like, all these years, I don't want a tree, and all I had to do was buy a puppy, and now we won't have a tree. It's
hey,
great.
Papa's out there.
And
you
I'm
just
not
gotta buy a
anti-tree.
puppy.
I think the tree looks pretty. They're just so much work, and the fake ones are just even more work. And like fake, why a fake tree? It's just so weird.
And last
to
year we got one. The kids and I got it. I don't know if you were out of town. Anyway, we picked it out.
Is that the side?
It had the longest, so it was supposed to be like 6 feet tall. And the like last foot and a half was just this one little stick thing going up. So we put the star on top of that just to be funny. The kids and I did. And Jonathan was like, "Oh my goodness, God, you have to trim it down. That looks so weird." And then I I meant to, but it was just I had to go out into the shed and get the trimmer. So it didn't happen for a really long time. So we our star a foot and a half away from the tree.
So, but I don't know if the tree is entirely a secular thing. It has been secularized, but it does come out of Christian Germany. And there are people can make one of the people make the arguments that they're idols and all this, and some people do treat them like idols. That's for sure. But for us, the tree has been more about Epiphany, actually, right? And light, the lighting of the tree late in December, then sticking around until after Epiphany.
If you have the ability to do a synthetic tree, or you've been given a synthetic tree, you have also been given the ability then to keep it up until
if you get
Ash Wednesday.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we've done that before. But Epiphany's not that far beyond Christmas, and so if you get it late in the season, and so I mean we don't have a problem with that. But the tree is not as much the focus for us as the you're right, the Advent wreath on the table,
and we
pull out the hymnals and start hymn singing.
So
when
what I've done is I've had the kids, like, I figure out
that worked
the
really
days
well.
between Thanksgiving and Christmas Eve, and then so how many days are there? And then we have each of the kids pick out their favorite hymns in the hymnal. They can be Christmas, they can be Advent, they can be whatever. And then we just each night after dinner, we pick out a hymn from the little jar that the numbers are kept in, and we sing it. And that's been a really fun time. And then we light the Advent wreath during that time.
And fight over who gets to light it, who gets to put it up.
There's lots of fighting at Christmas.
Yeah, that's right. Justice League comes to play.
Something else that the kids have enjoyed is so in our home, because we have a pastor as the father, we don't get to celebrate Christmas on Christmas Eve. We don't get to unwrap gifts on Christmas Eve.
We definitely celebrate it. We go to, before you say this, we go to a lot of church.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
We go to Advent. We go to Christmas Eve twice. We go to Christmas Day. I mean, we do everything. Yeah, and so church is the thing that we're doing, and everything else is sort of a supplement to that. So we celebrate Christmas by worshiping Jesus at church, and that is
it's so meaningful.
It is. It's a busy time, but it's such a valuable time.
And I found that by doing that, it is a busy time, like you said, but it's more like I feel the busy around me. I don't feel as busy in my heart, to a point where I will get so relaxed that I'll realize, oh, it's almost Christmas Eve and I haven't wrapped any of my gifts.
Yeah. So we do give gifts as well.
But we do give
within
gifts.
The family.
And we wait until after church on Christmas Day. Last year, that meant we actually waited until the 26th of December, and I loved that because we had Christmas Eve and we could focus on going to church and just being still. Christmas Day, we woke up, we got to go to church again, which is hard enough because you were at church late the night before. We had a big Christmas meal. Actually, it wasn't a big Christmas meal. We had pizza. Cauliflower pizza. And we decorated, each child got to make 1 or 2 Christmas sugar cookies. And so on Christmas Eve, so they decorated those, and that was like enough for the day. And then we just rested in the fact that Christ came in the form of a man. And then on the 26th, we did the ham dinner, and there was no church that day. So we just were home, we did a ham dinner, and then we unwrapped presents, and there was less go, get it done. So we were able to spend a lot of time just being together.
So
and
it is very, very stop the white noisy. Like our if you ask the question, what do you guys do for Christmas? What do you recommend doing? Like a lot of what we recommend is not doing stuff. Like what everyone else is doing, slow down, don't do it. Pick a couple of things that really mean Christmas to you. God bless you. I pray that means Jesus is born and not Santa Claus. Pick a couple of things and do those things all the time. Never don't do those things. So yeah, and let that be enough. and go to church a lot.
Yeah.
Go to Advent services. Take
For
the boys, even if it's late, even if they fall asleep in the pew,
yeah.
even if they complain. Make it something they remember.
And
when
they're
they're 18,
when
they're 18, they'll be like, I always go to church in Advent. I look forward to that. It's so weird. It's different. I don't even like church, but I like Advent church. Like they will, because it's going to have this special flavor to it.
And you can do it. We've done it with our kiddos, and I have done it sitting in the pew by myself.
They fall asleep
for
in the
all
pew.
of them.
It's glorious.
And they just, in their, well, you wouldn't have sparkly dresses on your boys, but
no, but you can,
they fall asleep.
If they're young enough, the 2-year-old, just put him in his jammies before you go.
It's true.
Just let the kids sleep. It's fine.
And how fun would that be to every year know that for Christmas Eve, you're going to get a new pair of pajamas that you get to wear to church.
But how are you going to wear them to Advent services you're talking about Christmas Eve then?
Yeah.
Okay, I was talking about Advent. But,
Advent too. Like at the beginning of Advent. This is your pajamas you get to wear through Advent.
Yeah, good luck finding Christmas pajamas that don't have a reindeer, a snowman,
yeah, that's true. Maybe there are moose.
A lollipop.
But anyway, the other thing that has been important to me is to reach out to people through cards.
Yeah, we do send that card.
That's the one time.
You send that card.
Yeah, the one time that I try to love all the people that we've touched in some way as we've traveled around the country. And then we hang up the ones that we receive so that I can pray for each of the people as I, see their picture or their card hanging in. Usually it's up high, but it's been
border for the ceiling. Yeah,
a border. And typically it's on a wall that hasn't been painted. So it inspires me to get it done. But anyway, those are what we do. Those are the things.
I'm going to answer 2 quick questions that are in the sidebar. One is it a heresy if someone says that Jesus isn't human anymore? The answer is yes. Denying that the Son of Man is in fact also God is the only heresy there really is at this point. Take that with a grain of salt. The only there. Don't go at me. I believe in justification. That was from Heavenbound.
No.
The Jesus is only God. Now there is. I don't remember that heretic. It's not unlike Patripassianism. Donatism.
Donatist.
It's Docetism. Docetism. That Jesus only appears to be man. He is not actually man. He just appears to be man. Docetic is to appear, something like that in Greek. So, so the answer is yes. That's the denial of who Jesus is. Super, super, super totally. And sad teaching. Miro says, why do you guys think, he means what, I think. What do you guys think of a Christian being a part of a secret organization? Usually a bad idea. Usually a bad
video
idea.
about
the Masons
this
and all
recently.
that. Yeah. I mean, I suppose you could be part of a secret organization that is planning to kill Hitler, like Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Like the reason that they got together was we're going to kill Hitler. And okay, I guess I see where you're coming from, right? You believe there's a tyrant that needs to be toppled, and you're not going to tell the government that's what you're doing. You're not going to tell anyone at church that's what you're doing. You're only going to work together to bring about freedom and liberty for all. But most secret organizations are in fact religions. And so to become part of one of them is to join that religion. And that's just kind of the way it is, the Masonic Lodge being the chief culprit of this. Last question from you through the system, RevFisk.com/contact for the day. This one's a doozy, and we're at time. We're going to do it anyway. Rev and Mrs. Fisk. My brother is 18, very tall, and hates masculinity. He hides his arms and legs because he has very dark hair there, which he feels makes him look like those who he perceives as arrogant, backward, barbaric men. Right? So hair on men means barbaric. He watches a lot of LA culture, YouTube, and talks more and more like a male makeup hairstylist.
Oh dear.
He knows that homosexuality is wrong, but he increasingly is uncomfortable when LGBTQ is referenced in church as an example of rejection of God. It really is a rejection of yourself. Okay, so yes, God didn't make you this way. He made you the way your body is, and that's a big gleaming sign to you. So yes, it's a rejection of God, but I don't like preaching against this as if this is just a rejection of no. It's a rejection of nature. It's rejection of science. Science. Don't you believe in science? Huh? It's a rejection of reality. It's completely made up. I'm a dog. I identify as a dog. So the guy who did Meredith's like not on the screen anymore. The guy who drove the van through the Milwaukee Christmas event 2 years ago or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Killed like 9 people.
Yeah,
all
I
this.
remember that.
He's on trial right now. And he's defending himself. He doesn't have a lawyer. He's defending himself in trial, and it's on video. And I don't know how, I do know how I found this. I slipped up and looked at Twitter for like 30 seconds yesterday. I broke down, fell off the wagon.
You're forgiven.
And this is what I saw. He's interviewing the guy who's one of the people who's like an eyewitness against him, saw him driving the van.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, he asked him to tell the story. I saw you driving the van. And his follow-up question is, who is you? And the guy says, the guy's name, I don't even know his name. He says his name. And the guy says, let the record show that I do not identify as that person, nor do I know anyone by that name. And then the judge is like, the record shows that. And then he moves. So his argument is that he's not who he is, right? So he's using identity as, it's just bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. So rejection of nature, rejection of reality, that's the point here, right? It's not rejection of God. I mean, it's because we've rejected God that we are being punished with a rejection of reality. Okay, going on. He hangs out with way more girls than guys from his high school choir and work, who, by all accounts, all assume at first that he is gay or at least queer, and I'm increasingly scared that he identifies as the latter. I know that he identifies as asexual or as ase. I don't know how to pronounce it. It looks like donkey without another S. Like, I don't know how you pronounce this. It's ASE, okay? But like, I don't know how to pronounce it. I know that he identifies, I said that, and he feels persecuted, triggered, anxious around all men who are masculine and hold real masculinity up as a virtue. He's threatened by the alpha primacy of the social order, and he doesn't see a way for himself to fit into that social order because he's being programmed by demons through brainwashing devices to think of himself as less than that, and the toxic poison he's been eating as food his whole life has stripped him of his testosterone. Oh, it's so sad. Please help me, she says, and my siblings understand, new page, how to reach, pray for, and or perform an intervention on our brother who drifts farther and farther from God, locks down harder and harder when we bring anything up. That's part of the issue. It's a religion. It is a religion. Whether about him or someone else, and dwells longer and longer among arrogant fools who say that God is a fool. We are all scared and angry at the culture's vice grip on him. It's the devil's vice grip on him, which is absolutely our fault for letting him begin to drift in the first place out of manliness and into foolish, effeminate paganism. Any thoughts would be hugely appreciated. I'm praying and worried for his soul. Thank you for all your wisdom, patience, and generosity with your time and energy. Nerd Learning Prayer is her name. So, yeah, help you. I don't know that we can. You've diagnosed it. His heart has run after his flesh. And if you're bringing anything up and he just gets angry, it's over. He's done. Yeah. The faith is not there. So now it's about praying to Jesus to break him somehow and pray that where he breaks, it isn't his end, but that he comes to enough pain somewhere from the direct actions he's taking to need to repent. But again, I really do believe that so much of this is gremlins in the system of the entertainment industry. Yeah. And it's unseen programming that is gradually manipulating the soul to be something other than it is. And so you're plugged into the matrix, you're going to believe you're in the matrix. And I don't have advice for how to get him out unless the parents just have the power to just take the devices away. Just straight up. Oh, you're still 16. You live in my house. None of that anymore. No more TV, no more iPad. It's all just gone. I throw a fit. I rebel. Okay, fine. Throw a fit and rebel. 2 years later, maybe he's thinking straight. You're just going to have to let him throw a fit. No, you can't go out with your friends. You live in my house. I feed you. Of course, now they're passing laws in certain states where if you don't recognize the gender of your child, you can have them taken from you. Whatever that means. That means the kid goes to school, gets brainwashed to say something. Teachers then use kid and training of the kid at school to train the kid to get taken away from the parents. And
so
this is not
my
that, but
kind of snarky question, but at the same time, it's a real question. Like, if you can identify as a dog, what stops me from identifying you as a man?
well,
Nothing.
Yeah, that's not fair. I mean,
That's what stops me?
Yeah, you're not allowed to do that.
Just that word.
You're hateful.
That's not fair.
You're hateful. You're mean. It's dead naming. It's called dead naming.
Or recognizing you as a woman.
Right.
That's dead naming too?
Mm-hmm.
Even though you're not.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, no. I mean, it's just it. Like at a certain point, there is
Like
no
that
reality.
guy who's testifying for himself.
At a certain point, there is no reality and everything falls apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the guy in the courtroom just said, I don't identify as that person. He doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And the judge recognized
Yeah.
it.
Let the record show. So the record shows that this guy made the comment. It doesn't mean the judge says you're right.
Okay. Because at some point you have to say, your body did this.
Yeah. Well, that's what he's on trial for.
Whether his body.
Well,
okay.
No, not necessarily. He's just on trial. Will the court be? I mean, he's making the claim, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he can just plead insanity at this point, I think, and it's fair actually,
Mm-hmm.
but that just gets you a different kind of prison.
So
Yeah.
with regards though to loving people through the brainwashing, you're absolutely right. Like if the source of the brainwashing isn't taken or
Mm-hmm.
isn't given up,
Right.
then it's just going to continue to feed
Right.
this
Sickness.
yeah.
Yeah. Mental illness.
And so, so I don't know. I don't really know what to do as far as my sibling. I live with them in the house maybe still.
Yeah. And again, if the parent has some control, then the parent has some control. And the only thing that remains is an intervention that is super hard and may in fact push the kid much further away, but it's kind of your one shot. Like you either shock the system and they throw a fit and then come around, or you shock the system and they throw a fit and don't come around. But a soft hand is not going to work.
Right. And if I apply what I was talking about it earlier in the show with regards to the liberation that Scripture gives us to speak the truth,
Yeah.
then in all situations, speaking the truth to him as he is making these false claims about his body and how God has created him,
Oops, sorry.
at least gives that little faintly glowing wick a little bit of oxygen.
If it's there.
Yeah.
If it's there. There's a self-hate issue going on, right?
Yeah. Something
and
happened to him. And it might not have even been at the home. It might
Right.
have been at school.
Right.
But somebody said something.
Well, it's more than said, probably. But there's a tremendous self-loathing that's taking place, and then it's been trained to hate all men as a result of that.
Yeah.
That if a guy has a hairy face, that he's barbaric. All right, sure. Well, that's toxic. Me there being confident, right? Well, yeah, okay, good luck. When the actual barbarians come, you want those guys around. You want those guys around bad, because the actual barbarians don't just have hair on their face; they got like pee on their face, and they're gonna eat your blood, right? So I mean, there's a big difference between a guy who's just macho and a guy who's actually gonna be violently aggressive and evil.
Mm-hmm.
And but to put them all in one thing and to say if we just got rid of all of that, we'd have peace on earth, is to not understand how willing those with power are to use anybody and anyone to put down those who don't have power and take from them so that they can retain their power. He's what the communists call a useful idiot. He will be used to continue to foster a weakness amongst himself and the population so that they may continue to control. And he's not alone in this. To watch your own sibling go through this, whom you love, is terribly sad. Yeah. Do you need an intervention? Yes. What is that intervention? I don't know. It depends on how much power your parents actually have over him at this time. But it would involve exercising all possible power to cut off all sources of this stuff, and with the expectation that he will be pissed. Mm-hmm. He will hate you.
Well,
but over the course of maybe 2 or 3 years of him being on a severely restricted diet, not necessarily food, but not necessarily not food, but a severely restricted information diet, he might find out that without all the demons telling him what to do all the time, he has his own mind back a little bit. And people don't believe this, but it really is true. You're being pushed. Well, I just watch good stuff. Okay, sure. You're being pushed. You're being manipulated all the time.
Yeah. And speaking of diet, though, like at a time when a boy's body especially is growing in stature, mm-hmm. like feeding him, encouraging him to eat more red meat.
Sure.
It's probably going to help.
Yeah, some bacon, some red meat. Agreed.
Just to take away some of the...
Well, that's why diet is part of this. I mean, living on the standard American diet, you're going to be low in testosterone as a male. It's shown. We know that there's a crisis of low testosterone in males. And so, yeah. But this is more than just that. He's ashamed of testosterone.
Oh,
right?
yeah, I know. But I'm saying that like because it's already low, it's easy to despise, I think. Mm-hmm. I would think. Mm-hmm. But if he's given more healthy foods, healthful foods.
Yeah, because part of it is also a fear. He's got a combination where he's been shamed at school for being a man. Yeah. He's heard men shamed for being men, and he doesn't want to be in that group. He wants to remove himself from that group and be among the clean group. So part of that requires, being weak. Mm-hmm. And then amongst the men who are men and strong, the jocks or whatever, he feels weak. And so he can gain power by hating them, by joining the group that says these guys are bad. If he had more testosterone in his system from a better diet, would he feel more competent in those scenarios where he's made to feel weak? Probably. But it may not be enough to get rid of the need to grab for power by joining the shaming club to avoid being shamed.
Yeah. I don't think so, but at the same time, it wouldn't hurt.
No, it wouldn't hurt at all. I mean, it's why we talk about carnivore here, is because we're complex animals, and there's a lot going on in us, and our spirituality is saved by Jesus Christ and his resurrection from the dead. But your experience day to day as a human spirit isn't about what you know, memorized facts. Right? It is about what you do, what you are. Mm-hmm. And so reading the Bible every day, taking the time to ponder and meditate, right? Having less stuff around to distract you from that, not being brainwashed by demons, eating food that isn't poisoning your will to live. These all make a difference. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's brutal question. When do you speak? When do you say something? I mean, I think having all the cards on the table is the most important thing of all. Like, parents just can't ignore it. Brothers and sisters can't ignore it. You got to say, okay, I see what you're doing. I think you're wrong. And there's this, I don't know if I want to say this. There's this idea that we're just supposed to stand beside them and love them no matter what. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure you do that with people who sacrifice babies. You actually got Moloch's statue. I'm going to go to Moloch and kill a baby at Moloch tonight. Okay, have fun. We love you. Mm-hmm. We love you anyway. No, it's like, don't come home. And that's where, so if I'm a parent and this kid's 16,
I think
this is hard.
18.
Yeah.
It's tough because he's not.
It's still free rent, free food. All right, look, I'm going to set some ground rules here, and you're on your own otherwise. And because he's got to crash. Mm-hmm. And it's better he crashes sooner than later. It really is. It's the worst kind of tough love, but he's got to find out what it's really like. You want to go out there and live like this? Go get raped by some guys? Have fun with that. See what it feels like. It's going to hurt you more. You'll end up in dark places, sleeping with the pigs, wishing you could go back to your father's house, ashamed to do so. But maybe at some point you do. You say, oh, this is worse. And then you find out the father says, now come home. Yeah, but be home. Right? So that was brutal.
I think that if the siblings are committed to, they could pray the Sons of Solomon prayers together or Daughters of Wisdom together. But having that in their minds daily is going to make it so that when they hear his arguments that are false, that are against God's word, that they will be more empowered to stand up and be like, no, evil.
Absolutely. So the Sons of Solomon prayer discipline, sonsofsolomon.net, and the Daughters of Wisdom prayer discipline. You can get your booklets for free. Just write in, ask us. We'll send them to you. It's also published right there on the internet. They are prayers that are to be prayed every day, and they will revolutionize the way you look at the world. They are strictly the Word of God. There's nothing man-made about the actual discipline. And they will give you wisdom beyond belief because you're asking the Holy Spirit for it, and he always gives to those who ask. Ask, you shall receive. So, Sons of Solomon, if you aren't doing that, and it sounds like a sister, Daughter of Wisdom, start one of the first prayers in the Daughters of Wisdom, how beautiful it is when brothers dwell together in unity. Pray that every day in the name of Jesus and own it.
At some point, inviting him to pray the prayers with you. If you wanted to do the Sons of Solomon, but not tell him the name.
Well, blessed is the man,
They're just various psalms. So just, saying, hey, would you pray this one psalm with me every day?
I could try it.
I don't know if he starting to turn away from the church.
It sounds like he does go to church.
Yeah,
maybe,
it didn't sound like he was.
But he doesn't like it when certain things are said. So yeah.
And so it's like, well, maybe feeding through that unity of, hey, I want to start doing this as a sibling group.
This is really.
Would you do this with me?
Are you a Christian, brother? Be honest with me. Like, are you a Christian, or are you just biding your time right now? Because I need to know. I am a Christian. Okay, hey, let's read the Proverbs together.
Yeah.
Every day, just a little bit. Let's each take one verse. We'll write down what we think it means. We'll come talk about it. Let's do that. And that's end around. Total end around.
Or, you could do that. You could find one of the Psalms in Sons of Solomon.
Go pray Hannah's prayer. It's pretty toxic masculinity coming from this woman's mouth, by the way. She's vicious.
Each morning, let's pray this together.
Yeah.
Those are, and you don't even have to do it together, but knowing that you are both doing it. That's for the Daughters of Wisdom. It would be Psalm 133 in the morning, and then Hannah's prayer is in 1 Samuel chapter 2. And just saying, I'm going to read these every day when I wake up. Will you do it with me?
Yeah.
Yep, it's chapter 2. So.
Talk no more so very proudly. It's good stuff. Even Proverbs 31, do not give your strength to women. God's right there for him. Yeah,
you could cut out the part about the virtuous wife.
Well,
at first, if you wanted to.
Virtuous wife, how's the last line go?
Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting.
But a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Like, deep down inside, give her the fruit of her hands. A virtuous wife who can find. You can't pray that and not see what it says. Right? Her worth is far above rubies. Well, I don't want one. Okay, keep reading it. More than rubies. You don't want that?
He's hurting.
He's hurting a lot. Amen.
And he has been roped in by lies. And so continuing to be a source of truth for him is going to be an important thing, I think.
Yeah, that's true. True indeed. Hey, would you like this video if you haven't yet? And if you do not yet support us on patreon.com or subscribestar.com, you can find us at both those places under RevFisk. It helps makes the wheels go around here at the Fisk household in Rockford, Illinois. Thank you to those of you who do support the show. We very much appreciate it. And those who've stepped up recently, thank you so much. The Hebron Collegium at HebronCollegium.com. We really want you young men who are going off to college next year to not go off to college next year. Put it off 1 year. Come read the Bible a whole bunch. Learn to work on wood. Learn some jiu-jitsu. Get involved in a community of men who believe the Bible is more important than anything else before you go out and figure out how you're going to fight this world. Fight with a group. Fight together. HebronCollegium.com and Mad Christian Mondays. Sign up at madpxm.com. The newsletter's gotten really good recently. It's always been good, but the writing is less and less just here's the news and more like here's how to think. So it really worth checking it out. And I am doing a long part series on the talk I gave in Wisconsin. So
did that
taking those notes, it started.
Already?
Yeah, I've got 2 of them out already.
Okay.
So taking that talk and just putting it into written words a little more. If you want to ask a question that gets put on the show, you can do that at revfisk.com/contact. And if you heard about that guy, Dr. Adam Kuntz, that I mentioned several times, you want to hear more from him because he's a genius. briefhistoryofpower.com. I also talk sometimes on that show. I think that's all we got there. It's past time. It's been a good morning, Meridith. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back.
I'm sure our puppy is missing you, so we won't waste much more time. Just a little. Again, thank you to all of you who have viewed and stuck around with us. Those of you who are listening, you can listen to Stop the White Noise as a podcast. Anywhere podcasts are found, you can also listen to all my sermons on the podcast saved. Look for them there. And yeah, that's it then there. Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. That means you've been paid for. That makes you immortal now. And he is not going to be long anyway. The water seals it. The food feeds it. This is Christianity. You should join us and not wallow in the muck with those who have no hope, but lift up your head all the more as you see the day approaching. You found Stop the White Noise with Jonathan and Meridith. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Meridith.
Rock on and alleluia.
Was that worth $1? Click the Patreon link in the show notes to sign up. Pretty please?